back to another episode of We Bought a Mic, a podcast about movies, television. No. It's just about movies. It's about film. It's about cinema. We're cracking open a cold one. We're getting ketchupy. Ketchup of the awards buzz variety. When you're looking at the aisle of ketchup at the supermarket and you see a nice little golden diamond encrusted bottle that says awards buzz on it. Maybe it's got a tinge of little honey in it. That's what we're cracking open.
What kind of like Trader Joe's ass ketchup are you buying over here? This like bougie shit.
Just the best of the best.
Craft.
The top shelf stuff. Welcome. My name's Ernest.
I'm this whole time I was trying to think of a pun and I couldn't. I'm defying podity. My name's Hunter.
You're a real pain is what you are.
Okay, there we go. Okay, see now that's better. That's better. I'm over here just like looking at wicked song titles like which one am I missing here? I want to be popular. No, that's not it.
Popular. All right, Hunter, let's jump right in. We got a lot to talk about. Every year we do this episode as we're ramping up till the end of the year where we cram a bunch of movies into a single episode and gauge not just what's good and what's worth recommending, but what has a chance at making a splash in the Oscar race, in the awards race.
It's a little bit, we're entering contender pretender time right now. I will say, like, we've been doing this pod since 2017. I can never remember a time that the Oscar race was so wide open, where there truly is just things are all over the place. People are just like, Anora is the front runner, which we're going to talk about some of our thoughts on that later on. But something about Anora being the front runner just like feels off to me. It's like too cool of a pick for the Academy to pick for Best Picture. Yeah. Like there's some buzz for like the artsy stuff, like the Brutalist, but it kind of feels like things are a little bit all over the place. And I think that really what the Academy was waiting for was their Top Gun Maverick. They needed something that was going to be this huge box office darling that was going to get fucking eyeballs on the broadcast. And I think that they got it with a little movie called Wicked.
A movie you've seen.
Yeah, which absolutely exploded at the box office this week. It is now up to $178 million worldwide within its first 4 days of release, which is nuts numbers. Highest musical movie ever already.
Broadway adaptation. By a lot.
Excuse me.
I think the record was Into the Woods, which was under 100.
Yeah, Into the Woods is I think that was the domestic, and I think the international was Les Mis, but either way, it's already smashed those records. It's not going anywhere. Which, sidebar, great weekend for the movies between Wicked, also Gladiator 2, big success in
which neither of us have seen as of this recording.
We'll see what Gladiator 2's legs are. I'm a little bit more skeptical on that. But Wicked is a movie that I do think is going to be around for a while. And I think that it's going to have staying power until March, until we really get through the award season.
So before you give your thoughts, I've been trying to straddle the line in the sand between the Wicked wars that are being waged or that were being prepped to be waged. I didn't want to pick a side. I didn't want to be anti-Wicked. I didn't want to be pro-Wicked. And as we were getting closer and closer, it seemed like I was going to be forced to take a side. Things were really heating up. And, I haven't seen the movie yet, but just based on the trailer, I was kind of leaning anti-Wicked. I was kind of about to fall strictly on the side of like, this is ass, this is trash. I don't know. I don't get this. I've never seen the musical. I don't really know anything outside of it being a Wizard of Oz riff. And now a lot of people have been watching the movie. Obviously it's out, but even the early buzz was very popular or very positive.
Positive and popular, really. It's
obviously there have been some detracting takes. It's not like overwhelming praise. but it is a lot better received than I was expecting. So I'm very, very curious, not just what you thought of it, but you have to talk about the people you saw it with too. You're coming in there with a lot of somewhat biased opinions. So I got to get the whole Mobley Mob take on Wicked.
That's right. The Mobley Mob assembled for Wicked. I saw this movie with my sister and brother-in-law, who are both musical freaks. Like, we all kind of grew up doing theater, and specifically musical theater, but she is super diehard, huge into Wizard of Oz, huge into Wicked, and had this whole prior relationship with it going into it, to the point that we were talking before the movie started, and she had a lot of reservations to it that were different than my own reservations, which is just like, how is this going to be done? Why is this movie 2 hours and 40 minutes and it's a part one when the entire Broadway show is only like 2 hours and 40 minutes long?
So it's the first act of the play.
It is the first act. The Wicked on Broadway ends with Defying Gravity. Like, that is the act break song, and that is how the movie ends. Slight spoilers, I guess.
But part two is coming. It's not a Dune thing where they were waiting. Like, it's been shot, right?
I'm pretty sure they filmed them at the same time, and then they were just like, we have so much of this, and Universal was like, hey, you know what we like is money from two musicals, so let's split it up into
cash.
Two. Wicked did learn the lesson of Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, which is don't put part one in your name, because people Dune won't go. And Dune. Maybe you shouldn't do that. Bad marketing decision by Paramount there. But as far as Wicked itself goes, the film, I also had a lot of reservations, because as much as I really enjoy musical theater, a lot of times that does not translate to movies at all. There is usually a lot of hit and miss, where there's some songs that are great, and then a lot of songs where it's just very forgettable, very mids, and it kind of bogs down the actual story. Because at the end of the day, I'm watching a movie. I care more about the movie than I do about the songs. I can just listen to music if I want to listen to songs. That being said, I think that Wicked is about as good as a Wizard of Oz fan fiction could possibly be. And I mean that in both a positive and a negative, because I do think that like they did a really good job of adapting the source material. I think that the performances are amazing, particularly Ariana Grande, who, as much as I love her as a pop star, I was like, I know she's done some acting before. She's done some theatrical stuff, but still a little bit of like, I'll believe it when I see it kind of thing. I think she kind of steals the movie, even from Cynthia Erivo. It's a much meatier role. Cynthia Erivo, I think, has a lot more to do in the second movie, because in this one, it's a lot of her performances. Let me just hold tears in my eyes for as long as possible and like be strong through the moment. So she doesn't have as much to do. Of course, incredible voice. Like her Defying Gravity is great. And as well as her other vocal performances, but Ariana Grande is amazing. The source material itself, it is basically Wizard of Oz fan fiction. And I mean that in that, like, it is down to the having love triangles and having every little thing that you are seeing in the story being some direct tie to something in Wizard of Oz, whether it's a slight Easter egg or whether it's like actually an overt plot point that I'll avoid getting into spoilers, but there's some stuff that I like after the movie ended, I was just like, Heather, tell me how it ends. And like, I groaned. I was just like, this is awful. Like some of the plot lines of how things are going to unfold and then lead themselves directly into the story of Wizard of Oz. But even like Elphaba's name. Elphaba is a amalgamation of L. Frank Baum, who wrote Wizard of Oz. Like, there's a reason why Elphaba isn't a real fucking name. It's just like trying to like make all of these little things. And there's a lot of that is just it's kind of cringy. It's a little bit of, and I know that like a lot of musical theater people might like come for my head for saying this, but like
the fans
it's not as great. The music, I do think that there are a couple really, really standout tracks. Of course, obviously Defying Gravity is the big one, but I think What Is This Feeling is one of my favorite songs besides Defying Gravity that I really, really loved. There's Popular, of course, is great. Like, all of these have incredible set pieces. Unfortunately, there's like two real lulls in the movie where it's like 30 minutes of just like all right, we're getting like a couple stinker tracks in a row. We're with some characters who really suck and just are bringing absolutely nothing to the movie. I'm sorry, but the guy who plays Fierro just did absolutely nothing for me. But overall, I was entertained. It's kind of a movie that since seeing, I've like poked holes in my mind about. But while I was watching the movie, it swept me up a little bit. Like I was brought into it, and I think that much like a lot of musicals, if you give yourself over to them, then you will find a lot of merit in it. And if you think about it too much and you try to like cinema sense it, then you're gonna hate it and you're gonna have a bad time.
I'm excited to check it out now that it's out. I'm not like rushing to the theater for it because I want all the fans to get all their pictures in the theater. I'm very upset to see all the posts of people taking photos of the movie screen, so I will avoid that. How was that at your screening? Were people taking pictures of the screen?
People were very good at my theater. I said, because we saw it at the City Walk Universal movie theater, just to get like the best projection that we could since Dolby screens were sold out opening weekend. And I like going to the movie theater. I was like, if people start fucking singing during the movie, I'm going to throw a full soda cup at them. Like I did not pay $20 a ticket to hear somebody like openly like belting their version of Defying Gravity. Yeah. Again, I was a theater kid. I listened to enough altos try to think like I can do Idina Menzel in every audition. I don't want to hear that whenever I'm in a movie theater. So luckily I will say
well-behaved crowd.
Yeah, it was a very well-behaved crowd. It was definitely like a good crowd for it, like a very positive crowd. We got some claps, especially like through the end. They really milk Defying Gravity, which that's kind of what you're there for. Yeah, it's like spread out over the course of like 10, 15 minutes of like closing, resolving action while it's still playing. But it's good. It's good.
I'm especially excited to check it out if it goes all the way. If it gets nominated for Best Picture, if it gets like 10 Oscar nominations, like I'm gonna see this movie. I can't miss the Wicked moment.
That's what I was gonna say, is that I feel pretty good that like after seeing it, I feel pretty positive that this is a lock for Best Picture nomination. Now, do I think it's gonna win? I don't really think so. One, because it is a part one, just like plain and simple, part ones never win. See, the whole conversation around Dune Part 2, why that can't win is because there's a part 3 coming.
Don't write it out though, because you know, Top Gun Maverick didn't win because of the juggernaut of Everything Ever All at Once. There is no juggernaut this year. It's very, very up in the air, very, very open. There is a very realistic path for Wicked to win. It could happen.
I see it more so. It's gonna get like between 6 to 8 nominations. I think that it's gonna get a lot of below the line stuff. I don't really see the Cynthia Erivo case, to be honest with you.
For supporting.
Again, it's nothing against her. Well, I think they would run her lead. I think they would run Ari supporting. And I haven't checked in.
Yeah, that is what they're campaigning. Yeah,
I haven't checked in on what Gold Derby has right now.
I got it pulled up right now.
Where is Ariana Grande at on the list? Because I really could see her
Cynthia
being a dark
Erivo,
horse, especially if that movie breaks $1 billion.
Cynthia Erivo is outside the 5. She's on. Okay. She's at 7 on Gold Derby. Ariana Grande is. Oh my God, she's number 2 on Gold Derby, behind Zoe Saldana for Emilia Perez.
I'm not really surprised by that. Like honestly, she is the best part of the movie. And like, I'm not even saying that as an Ari stan. Like I was shocked by how good she like fully takes over this Glinda role in like a way that I just didn't really know she had in here. It was one of those things that after watching the movie, Guy and I were talking like, will she try to make a little bit of a turn into doing more acting? I think that she'll always want to be pop star first, but like I could see her try to dip her toes more into the foray.
I mean, if she wins an Oscar, she definitely will, I'm sure.
Yeah. I don't think that she'll win, but I do think that she has a really good shot at being nominated right now. And then it's going to sweep up below the line stuff, like all the production design, costuming, hairstyling, all that good stuff. I will say, John Cho, guy who made Crazy Rich Asians, is the director of this film. Production design, impeccable. It looks
also
so
did
good.
In the Heights.
Yeah, In the Heights, yeah.
Which we both
world
liked,
is brought
right?
to life. Yeah. Love In the Heights. Completely casualty of COVID, that movie. But the production design looks amazing. Visual effects are awful. Like truly some of the worst visual effects I've seen in a major blockbuster in a really long time. It is a tough look. Like there's some scenes where I was like, this is like Red One level of visual effects. Like I don't know what these clouds look like I'm watching like Fant Four Stick in the background. Like I don't know what these dark clouds are that are behind him. So that's a tough look. But I mean, it's a lot of like little things that I can kind of pull out in the movie. As a whole, I think that there's a lot more good than there is bad.
And the fans like it, which, we have to make sure that the fans enjoy it. Otherwise,
hey, you know what? Raise my hand. I guess I'm a fan now. I don't know what to say. Yeah. Pull me over.
I'm excited to check out Wicked. Looks like it is going to be a massive hit. Lots of awards momentum coming down the line for it. It might be the movie of the year ? Just from a populace standpoint. We'll see.
Is that kind of more of an indictment on the state of affairs of movies? It's like that, or like Deadpool and Wolverine and Inside Out 2.
Like I don't.
What is the 2024 movie?
I mean, Dune 2 for me, but
yeah.
we'll
I mean,
see.
it's just been a thing. It's been it's definitely the movie of the fall winter season, and it's going to be hard to supplant it at this point, I think.
So what we're going to do now, so we have written down about a dozen movies that we want to talk about, and we don't want this podcast to be 4 hours. So we're going to try to hit as many of these as possible. Usually when we do these episodes, we try to organize things in a way that, we can do segues from one title to the next, or group things in ways that make sense. Maybe trade things off one after the other, maybe group things with things that we've seen. But we're not going to do that today. Today, we're going to do Russian roulette of new and upcoming fall releases. And we have the wheel of names here with these movies that we have loaded up. Should I read off the list before I spin the wheel, just so folks know what the options
let's just go for it. Let's just see. This is just general list of just movies that have come out in the last couple months or are coming out in the next couple months. What are their awards chances? Are they good?
Just so people know, we've been getting, I have it right here if people are watching on the YouTube, a bunch of screener discs from studios. We have the very, very nice neon box set here, which is like one of the nicest things that we're lucky and blessed enough to get as critics. Is so nice. So there are things that are not fully accessible to the masses yet, but we've gotten a chance to see them early. They will be out within the next couple weeks. There's only a month left in the year. They'll start to be more accessible. Some of these things are things that have just come out within the last month, or maybe came out a little while ago and we're just now looping back on them. So this list of movies that we're going to spin here is, I think, a good balance of stuff that's very much going to be pushed by studios for awards in the Oscar run, and a couple fun surprises thrown in there as well. A couple fall winter holiday surprises. So let's just go ahead and give this wheel a spin and see what it lands on. We're spinning it. It's a fun surprise. And we're landing on, okay, so I can knock this one out pretty quick. Rebel Ridge on Netflix is the new movie by Jeremy Saulnier, who did most notably Green Room, which we love. And he kind of hasn't done a big movie since then. He did one movie for Netflix that was kind of a COVID movie called Hold the Dark. Oh, wait, no, that wasn't even a COVID movie. That was 2018. I guess he's been making TV. He was involved in the Mahershala Ali season of True Detective. So this is kind of his first movie in a while. It stars Aaron Pierre, Don Johnson, Anna Sophia Robb, and it's about this ex-Marine who gets caught up in a confrontation with a small town police force that basically racially profiles him, and things kind of spiral out from there. It's this very tight thriller that sprinkles in elements of detective noir, little bit of, you know, kind of pulpy genre stuff. It does a really good job of keeping up the tension and making sure that you're entertained the entire time. One of the things I really love about this movie is that for it being an action movie, it doesn't really have a lot of people getting mowed down with bullets. It's a lot of hand-to-hand combat, which is, you love to see that. You love to be in a post-John Wick world where, I mean, John Wick does have a lot of bullets, but the choreography in those movies, the work that is being done, is bleeding into Rebel Ridge here. It's not a shoo-in for top 10 of the year material, not at least for me personally, but you might see it pop up at the WBAMs. It's a classic WBAMs picture. It's on Netflix. It's called Rebel Ridge. If you want to put on something that is going to be straight to the point, not going to waste your time, and give you a solid little thrill ride with a good dose of action, I highly recommend it. It does drag in the middle a little bit, but it starts strong and it ends strong. And there's very little fat, except for that middle portion where, you know, you kind of have to get some exposition dump, some plot stuff out of the way. But man, this guy, Aaron Pierre, he's going to be the next Green Lantern cast for HBO, DC Studios, alongside Kyle Chandler. So I'm very excited for his career. He's very, very talented in this. So it's Rebel Ridge.
That was going to be the big thing I was going to shout was Aaron Pierre, because I know that he now coming off of this is just like fully has the ramp. Of course, longtime WBAM listeners will know him as a mid-sized sedan in the film Old.
Yes.
He's that guy. He was also in some Underground Railroad miniseries. I still have not seen. I'm very sorry. But I'm happy for him. Do you know what his next role actually is?
It's not Lanterns.
I just learned this today. No, he's coming in a movie next month.
No,
do you know what it is? He's going to be the voice of Mufasa in the film Mufasa. Yeah.
Wow.
So how is his voice? I couldn't tell you that I remember what mid-sized sedan's voice sounded like. He honestly
doesn't have a lot of dialogue in the film. It's a very like quiet, voiceless role, which suits him very well. It's an incredibly physical performance, a lot of like body movement and looks and demeanor to make him look threatening, menacing, but also has this very vulnerable emotional center with what he's going through in the story. So maybe that's perfect for Mufasa. I guess we'll see Barry Jenkins' masterpiece.
Okay.
So I already spun the wheel while you were talking. And this is a great segue because you said that you hadn't watched The Underground Railroad, the Barry Jenkins film. We'll probably have to watch that to atone for the sins of Mufasa. But you know what movie we both have seen instead of The Underground Railroad? Piece by Piece. A Lego story of Pharrell. What if I told you that the life of Pharrell was being told in Lego form in the new movie Piece by Piece, a movie we have both seen?
Both watched last night. Just separate from each other. Both of us just simultaneously the same idea of like, maybe I should just fire up Piece by Piece, a Morgan Neville film where not only is Pharrell telling his story in the life of Legos, but Morgan Neville felt the need to Legofy himself doing interviews to Pharrell and the story of Pharrell with Legos.
I don't really know what to say about this movie other than I enjoyed it a lot. I don't really know why they made it other than Pharrell is rich and he can. He can't tell his story in Lego form. I know that there's some rights stuff with Universal getting the rights to make Lego movies, but no, they didn't get the rights to all the brands associated with Lego, just Lego. So they were like, okay, what can we do? What can we do? In comes Morgan Neville. And if folks don't know, he's a kind of a modern legend when it comes to documentary filmmaking. He did Won't You Be My Neighbor? That's the Fred Rogers doc, Roadrunner, the Anthony Bourdain doc, and then a bunch of other stuff. The Love Me When I'm Dead.
The Steve Martin one. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
20 Feet from Stardom. Keith Richards. The list goes on. So yeah, he's telling the story of Pharrell here. And it's literally the entire movie is animated Legos. It's a real thing.
It is like one of the most bizarre things that you will watch this year. I'm sorry, are you talking about like Universal getting the rights to Lego but not to any properties? It's now just making me think of earlier today it was announced that Apple is making the definitive Fleetwood Mac documentary, and I'm like, man, if only they had the rights to Legos that they could just animate the entire crew of Fleetwood Mac just all having sex and cheating on each other. That would be incredible. But unfortunately, not Apple.
That's so funny.
Piece by piece, I was like bewildered by this movie. And the thing is that like I still had like a fun time while watching it, but I'm not really sure why exactly. I think it's just because Pharrell has great music, and especially throughout the first half of the movie, it's like a really tight, like 90 minutes, 93 minutes. And the first like 45 minutes is just like the rise of Pharrell, his start in Virginia Beach, again, all told through Legos, where he has like this insane crew that just were all in Virginia Beach at the same time, including
Missy Elliott,
Pusha T, and, well, Pusha T and his brother, so Clips, like this unreal crew, and then of course Pharrell,
all Lego. Like I don't know if we need to keep saying this, but like all these people, it's the Lego version of them.
Well, it is a thing that just like bears repeating, because it just reaches points where it's like, because there are moments where it does take advantage of the animation medium, and it is like
which
trying
I
to do
love.
Something cool, something abstract.
There's some really cool sequences.
There's also some times where they're just doing interviews with each other, but they're just Legos.
They're like doing the thing you see in documentaries where they're like showing around the house and like hanging out with their kids. It's all Legos.
Legos. I will say, like, outside of like kind of the real insanity of just this project even getting made, it does hit like a real lull in the middle chunk of the movie when it makes like a really like fake conflict about like Pharrell felt like he lost his juice, man. He tried to make music for the radio instead of making his music, and it was like,
well, he had a lot of brand deals. He had like a skateboard line.
Also, that's like 2 years of Pharrell's life. The thing, what makes it hard for like a movie is that Pharrell hasn't really had to, like, no offense to Pharrell, I'm sure he has like in non-theatrical ways, but not a lot of like insane adversity. Like he's kind of one of those things that he came on the scene like a rocket, and he's just continued to have like a positive output.
He also has a lot of life left to live. He's only 51. It's a weird time to do a biopic.
But he's just like, he has a whole thing where he's like, man, yeah, I stopped making music for myself, and I started making music for other people and everything else. And it's like, I don't know, it was like 18 months, my guy. And then you just kind of like came back to making other #1 hits. But it's all an excuse so that we can have Daft Punk joined the scene. I'm sorry, I'm kind of spoiling a little bit of the life of Pharrell, but it's an excuse to get Lego Daft Punk in there and have Get Lucky be like this big triumphant moment.
Yeah, it's like the climax of the movie, essentially. It's kind of the best. It's kind of the best part of the movie. Everything leading up to that moment, you know, him floating around in space talking to Carl Sagan, or even the part right before that where the Lego fish takes over the studio and Lego water crashes through the Lego studio. All of that I thought was great. That's kind of one of the best stretches in the movie.
Can we talk about the end? I'm sorry. This is it got memed, but I really couldn't believe my eyes as it was happening in real time.
Lego Pharrell starts to come to terms with his Lego race.
skip ahead 30 seconds if you don't want this spoiled for you, I guess. Lego MLK is in this movie, and there's a Lego Black Lives Matter protest.
Yeah.
Including Lego police officers beating their Lego baton while looking at a crew of black Legos. And I was like, I can't believe what I'm watching. Is this real life? Lego holding up a Lego sign that says I can't breathe. I was like, this feels bad. This feels wrong. I don't know what I'm watching right now.
I mean, it's all in the context of Pharrell making All Right
exactly.
with Kendrick, which they show Kendrick as this like God coming down from the heaven, which is just like, yeah, actually, that's exactly GNX just came out. That's exactly what it felt like. Just Kendrick descends down,
just descending down.
A baffling choice, absolutely baffling choice. But you know, this whole movie is just kind of baffling. I don't know why they did this or what the point of it was, but I don't mind it. I had fun. I enjoyed it. You know, it doesn't make sense, but I'm glad it exists. I really like seeing Lego Gwen Stefani and Lego No Doubt. That was also one of my favorite moments, is when they make hella good. And you see the worlds of hip hop and pop collide. Lego hip hop and Lego pop worlds collide.
That was cool. The Pusha moment is great, where they do actually. I kept wondering the whole time I was watching it. My biggest thing was like, who is this movie for? Because it's not really for kids. It's not for like experts of Pharrell, because
they try to make it for kids. Like when they have Lego Snoop, they don't have a Lego blunt. It's all just Lego smoke. There's no one smoking. It's Lego smoke,
but also like they get to Pusha, and he's just like fully just like, you know, like after Pharrell left, like I went back to hustling. I was just like out there on the streets, and I was at a bad point in my life. That's like a weird thing to do a kid. Like that's not a kid's idea. And then he gets a Clips beat, and suddenly like they pop off. Like it's cool to just tell the story, and like I really admire what they did, but I was just bewildered by the whole thing, by the whole experience.
I would rather have this than like the by the numbers Pharrell biopic that's just with a bunch of actors.
Sure. Yeah.
Like that would be kind of unwatchable for me. Like yet another musical biopic that just hits all the walk hard beats, you know, and you don't want any part of this, Pharrell. The wrong kid died, Pharrell. That's nowhere near this movie. It's all Legos. You know, we've never seen anything like this. So that alone, I think, makes it worthwhile, even if it's not anywhere close to being a masterpiece or a home run or anything like that. And there are a lot of bits that I thought were really cool and really creative and, you know, visually dazzling. Even the Happy sequence at the end. I mean, Happy is not a good song, but in the context of this movie, it works. Like everything that you've seen leading up to that, and the way they visualize it and contextualize how he makes music and how his ideas flow, and the way they visualize it with glowing Lego bricks symbolizing the beats that he makes. It's great. I thought it worked really well. This movie's not going to make my top 10, but I thought it was a great palate cleanser to the movie I watched before this, which I will not reveal yet because we're spinning the wheel and it's gonna hit another movie, which is, this is a big one, Anora, the Sean Baker film. So we can't take up too much time with this because we need Drew here for the big Anora discussion. He hasn't seen it yet, but he will. I had a chance to see this at Enzian. Did you go to Enzian for it?
Yeah, I saw it in the 35 millimeter.
Yep, same. So did I. So our local indie theater, Enzian, here in Orlando, showed it on 35 millimeter. Beautiful, crackly celluloid. And this is what Hunter was alluding to at the top of the episode, the front runner for Best Picture. So we're going to be talking about this movie a lot the next few months. We will definitely do a big boy spoiler deep dive into Anora. But yeah, it comes from Sean Baker, the filmmaker behind movies such as The Florida Project and Red Rocket, both of which we all love here, made all of our top 10s. And I think this is a shoe-in for all of our top 10s, probably our top 5s, because this movie's fucking amazing. It's so well done in every conceivable way. It has this glamour and this gloss and this poppy energy, and then it also has this deeply heartbreaking, crushing, center underneath all of that poppy gloss.
Yes.
There are so many layers to this movie. So we won't get into any plot details or anything like that. Maybe we can give some overall sort of table setting overview of what the movie's about. It's about a stripper who's also a sex worker in New York City, and a young Russian oligarch, son of an oligarch, who buys her time for a week to be his girlfriend. So shades of Pretty Woman in there, the Richard Gere, Julia Roberts film, a movie I've actually never seen. I don't know if you've seen Pretty Woman. There's a lot of there's a lot of Safdie energy in here too. There's a lot of uncut gems.
It is plot wise, I guess, like half of it is kind of like Pretty Woman, but vibe wise, it is much more closer to something like Uncut Gems, where it's dark. It is very intense, but also like darkly funny. Like this is like, I'll back up in a second and just say, like, I think this is like the movie of the year. I really am excited to see it a second time, to kind of wrestle with a lot of my feelings on it, because there are so many layers to it. And Sean Baker has been the past, like, one of my favorite filmmakers working. Florida Project is one of my favorite movies ever, frankly. The way that he is so interested in destigmatizing not just like sex workers, which is kind of the most obvious thing between this, Red Rocket, Tangerine, like that's something that he comes back to, but this whole idea of class and America and what we kind of idolize whenever we even look up to like what riches are and what love is. There's so many layers to the onion of this movie, and I really think it's a masterpiece. Like, it's hard to really watch this movie and think anything but that about how successful it is. Huge credit to that goes to Mikey Madison, who plays Anora. As much as we were here on Demi Island, I still think Demi has a shot at getting a nomination. I don't really see anybody being Mikey Madison for the Oscar. I think that like what she does, the layers that she has here, with giving a very physical performance, but also being absolutely hilarious, like one of the funniest roles that you will see of the year, but also deep down, like so broken inside. And you can just see how worn out by life she is, that's just willing to cling on to any chance of hope, any way to get out of this cycle that you are stuck in. And I know we're saying a lot of like words about like how heavy and how dark the undertones is, but a lot of this movie is kind of like the glitz and glamour of it all, of like, oh my God, wouldn't that be so nice? Yeah.
There's a very noticeable turn in the movie where you have a long stretch of just smiles, excitement, partying, sex, drugs, booze, and then things change. Things take a turn. And the way Sean Baker does it is so fucking perfect. It's so well done.
It's one of those things that then makes you go back to the first half and think like, was it always like bright and shiny, or was it just like you just threw some glitter on some shit? Like that's was kind of the darkness
always there? Yeah,
exactly. There's like a lot of like fear, and like I kind of got scared at multiple points for the characters that are in this movie while watching it, because you never really know like what turns this movie is going to take. Like I would invite, if you haven't seen this movie before, to the trailers do a good job of not really saying where the movie is going, but go in a little bit more blind and just kind of go with the turns of this movie, because
I mean,
it takes you on some turns.
There is one turn in particular that none of the trailers gave away, that makes the movie. I mean, the final scene to me, is what turns this into like a true 10 out of 10 5-star movie. I'm so curious to have an in-depth, like, spoiler-filled discussion about the final moments of this movie, because they really recontextualize everything you've seen before it. And when the credits are rolling, you're kind of sitting there really just contemplating a lot that you wouldn't think you necessarily would be, given the flashier, energetic nature of the first 45 minutes of the movie. It contains multitudes. It's what cinema is all about, just going through this big experience in the course of just 2 hours. It's a hell of a movie. So we'll definitely be talking about it a lot more as the year goes on. Look out for a meteor episode, spoiler-fill episode.
So I did want to ask before we move on, like, where are you at? Like, what is your vibe check for Anora? Like, would you guess today this is winning Best Picture, Baker,
No.
Best Director?
I think it's too good.
Is our boy Yuri going to get a nomination for Best Supporting Actor?
Yeah, he needs to. He needs to.
Talk about surprises. Once again, our guy just getting like non-actors or actors that you have never seen before in your life to just give unbelievable performances.
I mean, it's hard because, we also do our fantasy film league every year, and we knew Sean Baker was coming out with a new movie, and nobody drafted it because the only nomination he's ever gotten was Willem Dafoe for Best Supporting Actor for The Florida Project. I'm pretty sure that's literally the only Oscar nomination that any of Sean Baker's movies have gotten. So a new Sean Baker movie doesn't mean that it's going to get swept up into the awards race. So Anora being the front runner, I mean, it won the Palme d'Or at Cannes. So that's a huge, huge sign of it being embraced by the Academy. But I don't know. It feels a little too good to be true. It feels like it's the classic movie that everyone will be head over heels about. All the critics will be loving it. And then the Academy won't quite get there. The Academy will instead throw their love towards, a Wicked or a Conclave. So we don't know exactly how this is going to shake out. I do think that time and time again, we underestimate how different the Academy is now than it historically has been, right? Like, we've seen movies like Parasite, Everything Everywhere, really, really dominate. So I could see it. I want to temper expectations a little bit. And because the races still feel so wide open, I don't want to like plant the flag here and say like Anora's winning Best Picture. It's not that simple.
It does feel a little bit too cool to win Best Picture. Like, this would be one of the coolest wins that I can remember in recent memory.
Maybe original screenplay. That is like the cool Oscar.
Yeah. And I honestly think, I don't know what the odds are on that right now on Gold Derby, but I do feel like it's gotta be a heavy favorite for that.
I mean, it's this, The Brutalist, A Real Pain, The Substance. That's the top four.
Actually, bangers for original screenplays this year. Let's go. No, I want to say that this is it, but I do have a lot of those same reservations. One thing that like is almost making me think of like maybe the Academy is ready is not just like the Parasites and the Everything Everywhere that you mentioned, but a few years ago, I would have said that there's way too much sex in this movie. There's way too much nudity for this to be like a Best Picture winner.
Yeah.
But look at Poor Things. Poor Things won the second most Oscars last year. Like,
Emma Stone got it. Yeah.
Loved Poor Things. And like, it swept up in all of the undercard awards. Like, I really think that means that there is some real noticeable shifts happening. Obviously, a lot of Academy voters are very plugged in with the Palme d'Or. Palme d'Or is always nominated for Best Picture. Usually is a lot of times correlates with something that could be at least a dark horse contender, if not a full-fledged contender.
It was Anatomy of a Fall last year, and then Triangle of Sadness the year before, I believe.
Which Triangle of, the COVID years are a little bit weird, just because it's hard to kind of tell a lot of the stuff that was coming out in 2020, 2021, but still. I really like this movie's chances and a lot of other stuff. I do think that It's gonna win like all the Critics' Choice stuff.
But dude,
and it's really cool. It's just really cool to see this Sean Baker. I never thought I always thought Sean Baker would be like one of our boys, like our little Critics' darling director that like we love him. He's making weird shit like Red Rocket and giving Simon Rex a chance to like have these starring roles. And the fact that like the world at large is embracing Sean Baker is just really cool to see. I'm not here to gatekeep Sean Baker. Like, let the world have him.
I mean, if he wins Best Director and Mikey Madison wins Best Actress, there's not a lot keeping this from winning Best Picture. Like, usually these things come in packages. That's what the Academy likes to do. If it wins Best Screenplay, that's one thing. Like, they like to just save that as like the one cool thing you win. You know, Jordan Peele for Get Out. Here's your one Oscar. But if it gets actress and director, that usually points to a Best Picture win. So maybe this will be one of those weird years where you do see a split. Usually that doesn't happen. Usually Best Director lines up with Best Picture, especially if the acting win is there as well.
We'll see. One of the deep things, whenever we're talking about like winners of the year and we do that at the WBAMs, we're going to have to like carve out some space to talk about like the small indie niche production studios have now just fully taken over the big boys.
Yeah.
Between Neon and A24.
Absolutely.
Neon and A24 are going to produce like 7 of the 10 Best Picture nominees this year.
Hell yeah.
It's going to be crazy when we look at it. Like, it's just like, oh no, we have like the modern day Miramax, and now there's like 2 of them that they're just going to kind of take over and dominate all these award cycles every year.
So I've spun the wheel again. And the next movie is a very small movie that I think could find a bit of a late resurgence depending on how the reception for it is. It's a movie called Nickel Boys. I don't know if this has the juice in terms of the popular embrace, but from an artistic standpoint, and the push from the cinephile community, look out for this being sort of the late entry surge, you know, taking a stab at this open field of an awards race. The closest comparison, at least to last year's nominees, is The Zone of Interest, a really artsy, somewhat heavy historical drama that really, you know, challenges what we know of our own history. And Nickel Boys is specifically Jim Crow South in the United States, as opposed to Germany in World War II and the Holocaust with The Zone of Interest. This movie is based on a novel by Colson Whitehead called The Nickel Boys. And it's based on a true story of a school right here in Florida, actually very close to where we grew up in Tallahassee. And it's the fictional version of it is called the Nickel Academy, but the real life version is the Dozier School for Boys, otherwise known as the Florida School for Boys, in Marianna, right near Tally. This was going down in the 60s and even way after and way before then, but that's when this story takes place. These 2 boys, Elwood and Turner, who are sent to this reform school. I'm trying to gauge how much I can give away about this movie without sort of, you know, giving away all the goodies that are in it. But I think the main hook I can give away is that this movie is told entirely from a first person point of view. It's very bold, very, very bold artistic decision by director Ramel Ross, who made a documentary called Hale County this evening, came out a few years ago, 2018. And this is his second movie. So first movie is a documentary. Second movie is this bold, innovative, artistic narrative based on real life. So this could definitely be something that not just the cinephile community, but the Academy latches onto as something to celebrate, because this movie is so effective. It hits so hard. It's so incredibly well made, and it feels really important, but also fresh and new. It kind of has a little bit of everything when it comes to the types of things that artistically the Oscars like to reward. And much like the Zone of Interest, it's not something I would call fun or entertaining. It's a very heavy story, but it doesn't quite go as far as the Zone of Interest in terms of being so demanding. And I don't know, maybe there are people that might disagree with that in terms of Zone of Interest being an incredibly demanding movie, but that movie hit me very, very hard. That's not a movie I would recommend lightly as just something to throw on. And that's kind of where I'm at with Nickel Boys, is that it is a relatively heavy movie about racial profiling, abuse. This is a reform school where very dark shit happened. You can probably assume all of it and watch the movie to know the details or read up on it on Wikipedia. I don't want to get into it here because I think the movie does a really great job at sort of pulling you in and taking you through the literal point of view of these boys and what they experience. They're not real people. These are not necessarily based on exact real people that lived through this, but this did happen. This is a real school that actually existed, and it's based on actual people. So it takes the pieces of reality and forms this new narrative out of it. And it's kind of unlike anything I've ever seen. I don't recall any other movie that chooses to tell its story in this way and is able to deliver as effectively as this does. So it's one of my favorites of the year. Again, it's not one that I would say watch 2 or 3 times to really get a lot out of it. It's one where you kind of just watch it the one time and really feel it and really let it sort of seep and soak into your feels. But man, if it goes unnoticed and unrewarded, I would be very upset and very bummed out, because it is an incredible movie.
See, I don't think it's going to go completely unnoticed, because I think I was talking about Anora earlier. It seems like Nickel Boys is kind of right there in the conversation for like the critics' darling of the year. Like, critics fucking love this movie. And usually, like, that is the thing. Like, Zone of Interest got nominated for Best Picture. Now, granted, that's also an international movie and huge international body, blah, blah, blah. But, like, that is something that I do think does give it a chance to get some additional legs to it. This movie gets a nomination for Best Picture, and that's going to grow the audience like tenfold for just casual viewers that are going to want to seek out this movie. I did want to ask, because I knew about this movie months ago because of the first person point of view thing. And it sounded, just on its surface, it seems a little gimmicky. It's like, oh, they're doing the thing that Hardcore Henry did, where they're going first person POV. Hardcore Henry had a ground inspirational film that more movies are following.
It changed cinema.
It changed cinema forever. But did you find it distracting, at least at first? Like how long until you like really settled in to the way that the movie was being told?
It honestly does feel a little gimmicky. It's kind of hard to get around that because it's literally the entire movie. There are some bits where you do cut to some historical archive footage. And there's very select moments where it does like an out of body shot where you're actually looking at the back of the guy's head, and the camera sort of fixed to his head, and you're not in his actual POV. But for the most part, it is literally every single shot, every single scene. So it takes a little bit to get used to. And there are sequences where I did feel a bit of a struggle. I wouldn't go as far as to say struggle, but a slight
you notice
bump.
it though. Yeah, you bump up against it just a
A
little bit.
little bit. Yeah. But the movie is so good. It's so damn effective that after a while, you are incredibly, incredibly immersed in the story and you're there. I mean, dude, like I said, it's unlike anything I've seen. Like I've never seen a movie that just commits to this idea and executes to the extent that it does. Yeah, there is an adjustment period, definitely. I can't deny that, but it definitely pays off. I mean, it's worth it.
Nice. That's good. I'm really excited to check this one out. I've heard nothing but like insanely positive things about it. So.
Yeah. I was gonna shout out some of the actors as well, but there are a bunch of unknowns. Folks wouldn't know them. I hope that they get work after this because they're very, very good, and you do see them. The movie has a neat trick where it's from the point of view of two boys. So sometimes you're one of the boys, and sometimes you're the other one. And so you get to see each one as you jump perspectives. So
I was really thinking, like, he's got like great hands. You see him like walking around like NPC mode.
Well, it's crazy because I listened to an interview with the director on the DGA podcast, and he was talking about how at a certain point the camera operator is the performer. You know, it's not just the actor, but it's like the guy working the camera. And they found neat ways to combine that and work around that. But yeah, very, very well done film. Heavy subject matter, 100% worth it. Recommend it if you're ready for, you know, that level of cinema that lands in a big way.
Hefty.
That's Nickel Boys. I spun the wheel again. Actually, no, I did not. I'm spinning it now. And we're landing on. Oh, no.
Give it to me. Where are we talking?
So we just touched on the darkness of America's history and the horrors of the recent past and the darkness that we must live with that we've inflicted on our brethren. And of course, I'm talking about Venom: The Last Dance.
Oh, okay.
I forgot I put this on the wheel.
I really was like, you're either going Venom or Joker, and I'm not sure which one we're going with.
So, listeners of the podcast know that I've been on a journey the past few years. Started in the year 2018 when I went on a.
Some might say that you have a little bit of a symbiote of your own.
2018. Went on a date with my then girlfriend, now wife, to see the film Venom, starring Tom Hardy, and we got very blitzed, very turned, and we loved the film Venom, which is not a good movie at all.
Can I add some context real quick? Is that I remember at the time, my then girlfriend, now wife, was working as a bartender, and I was up there just drinking at the bar where she was at, and you and Lee come in hammered, still just hammered from hours before, and Lee told me in depth the plot of Venom over the course of 45 minutes, like without break, just told me exactly what was happening and what the other characters were doing. It was honestly, I will never forget that. It was incredible. It was a great joy.
So fast forward a couple years, I believe the year 2021, the film Venom: Let There Be Carnage is released in theaters. And it stars Woody Harrelson as the titular Carnage that we are let there being. And I asked Lee, will you go see Venom: Let There Be Carnage with me? And she said, no, why the fuck would I do that? Are you crazy? And I said, whoa, we had this great time together. It's like a thing. It's like a bit we can do. And she said, no, I have better things to do. You're on your own. So I went to see Venom: Let There Be Carnage by myself. And I was disappointed, to say the least. Very bad film. Saved in some way by the fact that Venom and Eddie Brock are boyfriends. in the film, and they're learning how to love each other and support each other. They do get into some fights, into some arguments. Venom does party at the club with glow sticks. He does become a gay icon. And Woody Harrelson wears a wig that looks like Annie, puffy red wig. So there's some fun stuff there. And now the year is 2024. And the film Venom: The Last Dance comes out. And I think, you know what? I've made it all this way. How can I not complete the trilogy? I'm not going to see our buddy Venom off in his last dance. It's the last dance of Venom. How can I not be a part of this moment, this cinematic moment? And this was before the election when I saw this movie. So I was on a high. I was like, here we go.
This is a Biden's America movie. Venom: Let There Be Carnage.
We're defeating
Venom: The Last Dance.
We're defeating the fascists. We're gonna win. It's gonna be great. And so I went out to the theater to see Venom: Let There Be Carnage, and I hit the Pendulum a lot right before, just hoping that I was gonna cash in on the cinematic event of the year, that I was gonna have a glowing good time with my friends, Eddie and Venom. And this is, I think, the worst movie I've seen this year.
Oh no.
I am crushed. I am so disappointed to report that Venom: The Last Dance is worse than Deadpool and Wolverine.
God, if only we could have predicted that that Venom: The Last Dance wasn't going to be good. If only there was some way to know. We never could have known.
Let There Be Carnage was really bad, and I thought it can't possibly be worse than that. And I was wrong. I
will never watch these movies. But I do enjoy hearing stories specifically from you about the experience of watching these movies, and I don't want anything to take that away from you. That it's called The Last Dance, which is trying to spark in the mind images of Michael Jordan's in The Last Dance.
Yeah. And there are no references to basketball in this movie at all.
Not enough.
You could have at least had Venom holding a basketball and winked at the camera or something.
No, it's too busy, because the only thing that I know about this movie, the only thing is that Venom becomes a horse. That's it. That's all
Venom
that I know.
Does become a horse. Yeah. Venom also becomes a frog and a fish. And it's one of the best scenes in the movie.
These movies are. What's happening?
So this movie, the reason why it's so bad is because there are long stretches of the film in which Venom is not in the movie. Neither is Tom Hardy. The best part of this series is Venom as portrayed by Tom Hardy doing a weird ass voice. And he is a creative force. He gets screenplay credit on this movie. And I don't understand why you decide to bring in Juno Temple, Ted Lasso fame, to be the next Venom to set up the franchise. And it is the worst garbage I've ever seen. Chiwetel Ejiofor is here doing his best impression of a military general. And it's dog shit. It is actual dog shit. I don't always walk out of movies. I told myself, I was looking at my phone at the time. I was like, if Venom doesn't show up on the screen in the next 30 seconds, I am leaving the theater. This is crazy. How are we still on this Juno Temple subplot? What is happening? She's like a scientist at Area 51. And Area 51 is being decommissioned. And I'm just get back to Venom. I'm here for Venom. God damn it. What the fuck?
But good thing you didn't leave earlier, else you would have missed out on the best ending of any movie this year.
That was my Letterboxd review. Is I believe that this movie has one of the greatest endings of any movie ever committed to cinema. So if you don't want to know the ending of Venom: Let There Be God damn it, The Last Dance, please skip forward. So the entire plot of this movie is that Venom and Eddie are going to die. And Venom decides to sacrifice himself to save Eddie. And so Venom dies. And Venom wanted to see the Statue of Liberty in New York City. And he didn't make it. He died. So Eddie is now at New York City, and he is walking the streets of New York on his way to the Statue of Liberty so he can fulfill the dream that the Venom had. And intercut with Eddie walking through the streets of New York are memories between our two friends, Eddie and Venom, throughout the series, set to the song Memories by Maroon 5. Here's to the ones that we got. And I couldn't believe it. I was laughing so hard. It was the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life. And the literal final moments of this movie are Tom Hardy looking out at the Statue of Liberty, and the camera pushes in on his face, and he says, "I'll never forget you, buddy." Cut to credits.
That's so cool. That's great.
Cinema.
I'm really happy for Tom Hardy. I hope that like the checks all cashed for these. I hope he cashed them quick, because I don't know if they're continued. I don't know if there's more that are coming down the pipeline.
Very disappointing, very trash. I guess we do get a small little 30-second segment of Venom dancing to ABBA, to Dancing Queen, to make it somewhat worth it.
Okay. There you go.
It probably will get nominated for Best Picture. I think
so
Venom,
like 4.5 stars. Or...
Venom has a good shot at Best Supporting Actor, I think. But otherwise, so long, buddy. Why don't we stay on the trash section, and why don't you tell me about a recent chilly, cold picture that you saw?
Well, listen, guys, it's the season. Like Venom is spooky. That's like an October movie. That's whenever it's like, he's scary.
I'm scared.
I'm scared of
here.
The symbiote. I'm scared of having like a symbiotic boyfriend.
Juno Temple's remembering her youth. Get away.
Yeah. Ew, Marine 5. So I'm already past that. November 1st hits. I'm ready for something chilly. I'm ready to embrace winter. We got
you're bringing the eggnog out.
Listen, I have already drank almost an entire jug of homemade eggnog.
And a bottle of bourbon.
As my family calls it, jet fuel eggnog, because of how much fucking brandy I put in that thing. It's great. We're thriving. We're having a good time. And, you know, what are you going to do with the holiday season but throw on some good holiday movies? The classics. Home Alone. A Miracle on 34th Street. Hot Frosty. Yeah, that's right. Joining the pantheon of Christmas classics is the new entry from Netflix. It is called Hot Frosty. What if I told you that there was a story about a hot snowman who gets a little scarf put around him and has somebody take a photo, piece of flash photography of the snowman, and he comes to life, and he's a hot Frosty. This movie is so bad. I really have a special place in my heart for like terrible Hallmark, or Netflix is trying to take over the mantle. But the Hallmark style Christmas movies, they're so bad. They're all exactly the same. They have one of three plots, which is dead husband. She's never going to find love again, but oh no, this guy's really connecting with my son and or daughter. Or there's she's a career woman. She has no time for love because she's all about business and making partner. Or there's like a guy in there who's just like, oh God, I was about to be president at the business factory, but I have to give it all behind to sell Christmas cookies and make $2 million a year. They're so stupid and ridiculous. And Hot Frosty is particularly a really, really bad one. Because it's Netflix, it has more of a budget than a lot of Hallmark movies do. It doesn't have the same like umph and pizzazz of some Hallmark movies, though. It's starring Lacey Chabert, who is from Mean Girls, notably. Like she plays Gretchen.
Gretchen. Yeah.
This is kind of what she's doing now. She's in a bunch of these Netflix slop ones. So is Lindsay Lohan too. They're just like trying to get people, especially for
oh my God, are they gonna
age.
meet up? Are they gonna do the reunion?
there's literally a scene in Hot Frosty where Lacey Shaber is watching the screen. Like Hot Frosty, man, his name is you'll never guess this, Jack.
Jack Snowman, it says.
Frost. Yeah, Jack Snowman. Lacey Chabert is like he's watching TV or something like that, and she literally points at the screen and says, "Hey, I went to high school with her," and it cuts to the screen to a different Netflix Christmas movie that is starring Lindsay Lohan.
Oh, it's a reference.
It's a reference, and we all clapped because we've all seen Mean Girls.
You can't sit with us.
I do feel like I feel my age a little bit whenever I see these things. It's like, oh, we're now getting things that are pandering to our generation. Yeah. Like we're fully just we're at that point of movies that are happening. So anyways, Hot Frosty, I don't have much to say about this. Craig Robinson plays a cop in the town.
Cool. Okay.
He's really bad in it. He plays Sheriff Hunter, who his whole thing is
nice.
He wants to just like uphold the law at all costs, and is just trying to arrest Snowman guy. Because the thing is about Frosty, he's like, you know, he doesn't know shit about shit because he like just became a person last week, but like he's like a very sweet, lovable guy. And sometimes when he's indoors, he gets too hot and he starts melting, but it's sweat, which becomes like a really scary image at a certain point of like a human melting. He also is a super genius, and if he just watches a TV of like, he watches like an hour of HGTV, he's just like, oh, by the way, I remodeled your home for you and fixed your roof.
Because his brain is ice.
With here. Yeah, he doesn't have thoughts in there except for like how he can please Kathy, Lacey Shabert's character.
Do they fuck?
So it does end with spoilers for Hot Frosty. So Craig Robinson is fully out to kill Jack. He kind of gets some inklings that like Jack might actually be a snowman person. But he's just like, I don't care. He broke the law. I'm putting him in the jail cell. And also it's 85 degrees in here.
It's a sauna.
Yeah, he's melting him alive. So and Lacey Chabert is just like, I have to gather the whole town because Jack has made all these positive impressions. We have to like find a way to convince everybody to save him. And she's just like, no, guys, you're never going to believe this. Like, Jack, he's not just a person. He's a snowman. And everybody in the town says, okay, we believe you. And they said, it's the best moment in one of these movies in a really long time where Kathy says to everybody, like, you believe me? Like, you believe me? And somebody else says, it's Christmas. And smiles and like looks at the camera while it happens. And I was like, the balls on that screenwriter that they're like, fuck exposition. It's Christmas. I don't know what to say. It's Christmas.
That's so good.
Anyways,
Christmas.
They kiss and he turns into a real boy, is how it ends. So.
Oh my God. Yeah. The next time Lee gets, upset that like I fucked something up, like I burned dinner or something, I'll be like, it's Christmas.
Guy and I have been doing this to each other around the house for the last 2 weeks because it's the funniest thing that I've seen in so long. So that's Hot Frosty. I think that this is going to win the Big 26. It's somehow going to get into every category, including animated feature and shorts.
It's going to win. Well,
it's going to win everything.
I think the one movie that does have a shot of unseating Hot Frosty is the next movie on the wheel. And that's The Brutalist. So
I was hoping you were going to get Joker Folie do. I just want to hear 60 seconds of Joker thoughts.
Don't worry, we'll get there.
Okay.
So some might say that the coldest, most punishing thing is to have intercourse with a snowman. Others might say that it's making the next great American epic. Who's to say? Who's to say what is more challenging and difficult and worthy of praise is either boning down with Jack the Snowman or crafting a beautiful artistic piece of cinema.
I'm gonna be honest, taking an ice stick seems so much worse. It seems so much more difficult. No, ain't no way there. Also, would that melt his ween? I don't. We have to ask the questions.
Oh my God!
Like,
right?
The heat. Yeah.
Yeah.
If he can't handle heat.
What's the temperature? Yeah.
There's a lot of questions that I've been mulling around about this. Anyways, how many snowmen are there in Ray Corbett's the Brutalist?
I don't think that there's any snow in this film that I recall. I'd have to watch it again. And I will say I will gladly watch this movie again. I think it's one of my favorites of the year. I don't think I would put it above Anora and Nickel Boys. I think those two I would rank above the Brutalist, but it's right up there. I mean, it is worthy of that tier. There's just a couple things about it that I can't really get into it too much without spoiling the movie, but broadly, what folks should know is that this is a very long movie. It's pushing 4 hours. It's like 3.5 hours. It has an intermission, a 15-minute intermission, which is very classy, very well done, perfectly executed intermission. But most of my quibbles are with the second half of the movie, everything that happens after the intermission. I think everything before the intermission, the first half of the movie, is 10 out of 10 perfection. It's as good as it gets. It's the filmmaking of like the highest caliber where you're thinking, oh my God, how is this real? How did they do this? How is this movie like operating at the budget that it was made at? I mean, this movie was made for under $20 million or something like that. It's a very, very low budget for the scale of what this story is. It's an immigrant story. It stars Adrian Brody, and he plays a architect who is escaping the Holocaust. He's coming over from Europe to America. And the movie basically picks up like right there. Like that is the intro to the movie, is him arriving in New York City. There's this already iconic image of the Statue of Liberty, not from Venom: The Last Dance. That's a different iconic Statue of Liberty. How
many Maroon 5 songs are in the Brutalist?
At least 5.
Okay, cool.
So it's the story of this architect coming to America and surviving and getting handies from prostitutes in the streets of New York. It's a massive, massive movie. There's so much to dig into here. I would love for us to do a more in-depth discussion, spoiler-filled discussion about this movie. I would honestly watch it again, even with the long runtime, because I love the experience of being immersed in this world. It's so well formed, and the articulation of this vision is it's just what you want. Like, it's what we crave when we are out there looking for good cinema. It's movies like The Brutalist. It's a strong vision arriving on the scene, and confident and willing to take chances. Yeah, and delivering on the idea of an epic. I mean, this movie has a lot of juice behind it from the conversation of the awards buzz behind it, and the word epic is being thrown around a lot, and it lives up to it. It lives up to not just the runtime, not just the size of like the story in terms of like how long you're watching this movie, but when you're in this world, it feels incredibly immersive. It feels like you're being fully enveloped and wrapped around with this story of this architect, of this immigrant.
Big year this year with the architect movies between this and Megalopolis. Who is a better architect is really the question.
In a lot of ways, this movie is kind of what Megalopolis wishes it were. Like, this
is the Brutalist a fable? Does it tell you it's a fable?
It's this big vision of America, of life, of the world, of the human experience,
which is what Francis Ford Coppola thought that he was making with Megalopolis.
Exactly. And you know, there's a lot of other things in there, and there's some things that I don't think 100% connect. There's a couple of the performances, I don't know, maybe on a rewatch it'll click for me, but I started to bump against some of the choices by some of the performers. But the main two, Adrian Brody and Guy Pearce, I think are exceptional. Definitely look out for both of them being nominated for Best Actor and Best Supporting Actor. There's some other folks in there like Felicity Jones, Joe Alwyn, Alessandro Nivola, who was most prominently seen in the Sopranos movie that came out a couple of years ago, The Many Saints of Newark, the prequel movie. He's so good in this movie. Disappears in the latter half, but is very prevalent right at the beginning as we're sort of entering this world. I just think that if this is what everyone is saying it's going to be, and it's like the big sort of counterweight to Anora, it's so well deserved. If this if this Oscar race becomes The Brutalist versus Anora, we're in for just an all-time great award season, because both of these movies are just so exceptional and so different. You know, Anora, you have this modern, very like snazzy, snappy movie, and The Brutalist is this more kind of staid and harkening back to a different era of cinema, while still feeling very watchable. I mean, that first half that I keep saying I enjoyed a lot, it goes by extremely fast. When you get to that intermission, you've watched like maybe almost 2 hours worth of movie, like maybe 140 or something, and it goes by like that. You don't notice it at all. The pacing of it, the editing of it, it's incredibly well made. Brady Corbett is Corbett. Brady Corbett is the director, and I haven't seen any of his other movies. The most notable one he made is Vox Lux with Natalie Portman. So that's just at the top of my watch list now. I want to see some of the other stuff he's made, but man, this movie. This
is the guy who made Mysterious. Wait, did he make Mysterious Skin? No, he has acted in it. Never mind.
Yeah, he's an actor. Yeah. This movie it feels massive. It feels so massive, and just the experience of watching it is how the hell did they do this on the budget that they did? And why the hell isn't every movie this good looking and feel this epic, right? So I'm looking at Wikipedia right now. The budget for The Brutalist is estimated between $6 and $10 million. How does this movie look this good? And a movie like Deadpool and Wolverine, which costs like 20 times this, it looks like dog shit. Like, I don't understand. It's crazy. We need to demand more from our artists, and this movie proves that it is possible. And it's a movie about an artist proving that it's possible. Like, there is a meta narrative in it where this architect, throughout the course of this movie, is building this monument, this building, that it is a representation of all art, of all cinema, of all the intention of what every artist wants to accomplish with their work. I hope this movie hits. I hope it lands. I hope it's this massive artistic hit that we're all hoping it's going to be. Like I said, I have some quibbles, some reservations that are very spoilery, but man, oh man, it is worthy. It is worthy of all the praise.
I mean, I've heard some great things about it. To your point about being like kind of the counterweight to Anora, that would be a very cool conversation having between the two of them, because they represent a lot of like old classic ideas of like what is a best picture winner, this idea of a grand epic, a story about America. Well, both of them are stories about America in their own way, but with, of course, Mikey Madison being right now a heavy favorite to win Best Actress, and Adrian Brody being a heavy favorite to win Best Actor. So you kind of have both of them as like dual pairings against each other. If that does end up being, it's still too early to tell. Who knows? Conclave could be the favorite in a month from now. So
for his second Oscar, we should say, Adrian Brody is a previous winner for The Pianist. And this, I've never seen The Pianist, but this movie feels like a sort of spiritual successor to The Pianist, because that's a Holocaust story. And this is a story about someone who has escaped the Holocaust. And one of the best things, I'll give away a little tiny bit. One of my favorite things about this movie is that it never falls into the trap of giving you this like exposition dump of what this guy must have experienced before he came to America. Like, we know, we can imagine, we can picture the horrible shit that he must have seen. And the genius part, the thing that I feel like makes Adrian Brody worthy of a nom and even a win, is that he carries that with him in his performance the entire movie. You don't have to have the flashback, because every time you see this guy on screen, you can tell that he's having the flashback in his head every second, every moment. It's so good. It's such an incredible performance.
I'm so happy that Adrian Brody is back. I love that guy. The Pianist is amazing. The movie's a masterpiece. But like, it's Adrian Brody has been one of those guys who's had like very, very up and down career. He's made of just a lot of swings and misses. If you look through his filmography, there's a lot of stuff where like he picked a great director, but like it was in a lot of lesser work, or it was something like on paper it should have worked and it didn't really work. I know Grand Budapest is one that does actually work. Like, he is great in that movie.
Yeah,
but
Wes Anderson has really picked him up. Yeah,
Wes Anderson's taken him under his wing. But again, it's a Wes Anderson movie, so it's a big ensemble. I'm glad to see that he is like back in the limelight as a leading performer again.
A couple last things to shout out. I shout out the look of the movie, but just the way the thing is photographed and shot, it is just unbelievable. The sense of place, the sense of scale. Yeah, like I said, very immersive. And then the score. This movie has one of the best scores of the year. It's done by Daniel Bloomberg. It is very, very good. If folks have seen the trailer for The Brutalist, you've heard a very prominent snippet of the music, and it just sort of blossoms from there, from that theme that you've heard in the trailer. Great trailer. Have you seen the trailer for The Brutalist?
Yeah, it's a great trailer.
It's so good. Just the way it's designed with the scrolling like left to right text. That is a bit of a motif in the film that I really enjoyed the way it was deployed. Because, you know, the whole thing with brutalism, it is a design convention and an architecture approach, a sort of style of design. And the way it's implemented in the design of the movie with the fonts and the graphics of the film, I thought was very neat. For a movie about like 1940s and 50s and 60s and incorporating a lot of the design conventions of that era, it feels very modern. It has this like fresh quality to it. So it manages to feel like this classical timeless tale, but it also feels like this new thing that's also looking forward. So yeah, lot to unpack with The Brutalist. I'm very excited to talk more about it. Can't wait for you to see it. Let's spin the wheel one more time. and talk about a movie that may not be the big hit that The Brutalist is, but you saw it. I haven't seen it. It's Maria.
Maria. This is the new film by Pablo Larraín, who most recently made Spencer a couple years ago, I think 2021.
The Princess Diana
Jackie,
movie with Kristen Stewart.
Yeah, and then Jackie before that, with Natalie Portman. I've never seen Jackie. Spencer is a movie that I liked. I wouldn't say that I loved. Maria is something that's this movie just didn't really work for me at all. To be honest, this is a like my first one that's I think I can just kind of say I like really don't recommend this movie unless you are there to see a powerhouse performance from Angelina Jolie, which that you will see. Angelina Jolie is right up there on the short list as far as like the best leading actress performances of the year, and she is quite good in this movie. But overall, while watching this movie just felt very hollow to me. So giving a little bit of background, it is based on Maria Callas, who is one of the great renowned opera singers of the 20th century. She's kind of a person who put opera on the map for a lot of people. And I think that one of the things that kind of sat wrong with me while watching this is we saw this at an early release, and before the movie started, the director Pablo Larraín gave like a little snippet about like what he thought about the movie, what drew him to the character, all this kind of stuff. And in it, he talks about how Maria Callas is like this incredible woman who wanted to take opera back from the elite society and give it to the masses, because that's what opera was always intended to be in its infancy. It was something that was for everybody, for rich and the poor to all enjoy together. That's kind of not what this movie's about at all. Like what he described is a much more interesting idea. Instead, this is a movie that is very up its own ass with the filmmaking in a way that I just found frankly pretty annoying. There is a very obvious level of craft to it. There is some fantastic production design, some of the camera shots, cinematography, everything is looking good, but it just feels otherwise empty and very convoluted. It's one of these things, it's focusing on Maria Callas in her final days of her life, whenever she has retired from opera singing. She's kind of coming to terms with what her life has meant and if she has done everything that she could have done. And so it's her giving this autobiography of her life through various filmmaking techniques. One of the most bizarre being that she does this fake she is doing like this interview with Cody Smith-McPhee of Power of the Dog fame, but it's all in her head. This like interview that she's doing, and it's very clear that it's in her head that she's like taking a bunch of pills and all these kind of things. Like she's like at the end of her days, but she's doing this whole thing where she's like walking and talking the streets of Paris while talking with Cody Smith-McPhee about things about her life. And then it will intercut with these black and whites, flashbacks, extended flashbacks at points to Angelina Jolie. And I'm trying to, I think his name is Pier Francesca Favino. A lot of Italian and European actors that are in this thing that are not, Americans would not necessarily recognize. And it's just one of these things where it's so meandering. And I could see maybe if you really loved Maria Callas, then this movie might have something for you to give you some of that insight. But it doesn't really leave the door open for people if you don't have a lot of prior knowledge about her. And frankly, I think that that's a mistake, because you might be able to do something like that when you're making a Princess Diana movie or when you're making a Jackie Kennedy movie. But whenever you're making a movie about an opera singer, like the masses don't know opera. I've said before at the beginning of this that I'm a big theater guy. I've never actually been to a opera. And I think that that same goes for almost everybody in our generation, especially, but I'd say even generations above us, because it's something that, especially in America, has become such a niche thing to do. So I really just don't think it works. It's frankly pretty boring. Angelina Jolie, like I mentioned, is very good. I think that they do a good job of mixing in her own vocals with Maria Callas's stuff. I don't think she's singing raw through everything because, I mean,
they have the tech now to
I
blend
think
it.
they're able to mix it a bit, and she does a very good job of playing a certain type of woman, like at the end of her life, who is affluent and has this power and knows how to use her power, but is always also like filled with regret. She's carries so much on her face, like Angelina Jolie is kind of renowned for, but overall it's pretty ineffective.
It sounds like the movie's not very good, but in terms of the Oscar race, it still is very relevant regardless of the quality, because the Academy loves to give out the It's Time award.
But I mean, Angelina Jolie has already won.
Oh, did she?
Won an Oscar for
well, you know who also won their second Oscar for a bad movie is Renee Zellweger for Judy.
Yeah.
Nobody needed her to win a second Oscar, and they gave it to her.
That is true, especially because I feel like there has been a lot of goodwill towards Angelina Jolie from society, as like a society towards her, especially like as a lot of the Brad Pitt stuff has continued to come out in the years post, and it really started escalating around the time of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It's only gotten like worse and worse with a lot of stories.
And he
about, like,
won for that.
How abusive of a guy he is, and like not a good dude. So I could see it happening for that. She won. It was 2000 is when she won for Girl Interrupted. I can't remember if she won for that or for Changeling. She was nominated for Changeling, but won for Girl Interrupted. So I mean, it's been 24 years. It might be a thing of we'll give her another one, but the Oscars are weird where for women, they are often quick to want to give like the young up and coming ingenue star, like give her an Oscar, tell her like she's arrived, to give her something like that. Where with men, it's the opposite. Like the youngest man to ever win an Oscar is Adrian Brody for The Pianist, and he was 29 years old. Like the Oscars do not rush to give out to young male stars in the same way they do for young women. So that is one thing that's working against her. But again, weird year. We'll see what happens with Anora about like if I think a lot of it's going to depend on how Neon plays this, if they're going to do another re-release or what's going to happen. Angelina Jolie is going to be in order for her to win, she's going to be having to do the very old school classic campaigning. Like she's going to be campaigning with the capital C, going around at every single event, kissing all the hands and the babies and making herself as known as possible. So people are like, oh yeah, Angelina Jolie, I really like her. And that's why.
Well, we're recording this before like any real nominations come out. So it's an interesting time to gauge exactly how it's going to happen, because there is a chance that Maria just doesn't happen at all, like that nobody watches it, and the people that do are just like, I liked Angelina Jolie, but I don't like the movie enough to really reward her. And then that's when Demi Moore sneaks in. It's like the substance
train
take
that spot.
The substance train is climbing. Like that movie, I don't think has peaked yet. More and more people are watching it, and more people are loving the shit out of it. So I could way more likely see the scenario in which Demi Moore is a surprise nomination than Angelina Jolie just being like the standard Oscar bait pick here. I mean, there's a chance that they both get in, definitely. But there's only so many slots.
Because the one thing, and I was thinking about it earlier today, and I don't have it off rip to know, but the one thing that I feel like might work against the substance, again, going back to like classic Oscar thing, is the substance doesn't have the backing of A24 or Neon or one of these other studios. It's Mubi.
Yeah.
Does Mubi know how to run a campaign?
We're about to see.
Because that's the thing that like nobody wants to talk about. Everybody just wants to say like the best movie of the year is this and it should win Best Picture. But there's so much behind the scenes that's happening about like, are the studios willing to take the risk of like, hey, we already spent $10 million on this movie. Do we want to throw another $10 million at this to try and get you an Oscar and get some more clout or not? So
we'll see. People love the substance, especially filmmakers. Like I saw Guillermo del Toro put out a post that he like hosted a screening for it or something with Demi Moore. Like it's happening. It's building. Like this could happen. You know, I genuinely would not be that shocked if Demi Moore got in for Best Actress because she fucking deserves it. She's so good in that movie. I've rolled I've spun the wheel again, and it looks like we have a problem. We need to figure out who the next pope is going to be.
Oh, well, fortunately,
we can't leave this podcast until we know who the next pope is.
What if I told you that the way that we decide who the next pope is kind of a lot like the way that we decide who the next president is?
Elon Musk comes in and just decides.
So this movie is about a Nazi becoming pope.
Elon Musk just starts jumping to form an X, and he's like, "I'm so cool, guys. I'm an X."
So have you had a chance to see this movie yet or no?
No, I want to see Conclave. I want to see it. I haven't seen it. I'm waiting for my
Catholics.
I'm waiting for my
screener.
I'm waiting for my dirty DVD screener for Conclave.
I
wanted to go to the movies. It's only playing at like 2:30 p.m.
Yeah. You had to see it before Weekend Gladiator Weekend or Wicked Gladiator Weekend because now it is it's gone. It's off all those screens. So I'll give my thoughts on Conclave. I think that I was pleasantly surprised by this movie. I will say this is by Edward Berger, who made All Quiet on the Western Front, a movie that's I liked, didn't love, and then had a lot of resentment for because it won Best Score over Babylon, which will be looked on like years from now as like, how the fuck did that happen? But for this film, Conclave, it is about what you mentioned. The Pope has died, and it is about the inner workings of how this group of cardinals are going to elect a new pope. And in that, it's very much a satire of American political systems, of democracy in general, of the politicking that you will do behind the scenes. And I think that it is very effective whenever it's doing that. It's pretty funny. It's pretty light on its feet is one thing that I will give it a lot of credit for. Huge credit goes to Ralph Fiennes and to Stanley Tucci, who are like the 1-2 in this thing. And both of them are just absolutely delightful, as well as John Lithgow. John Lithgow is in here just doing his best John Lithgow thing. Isabella Rossellini.
Stanley Tucci of my Instagram feed fame.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Of cooking on IG.
Just, like, being a guy and just like living his best life. And I'm really happy for him for that. I don't think that this movie is like a masterpiece by any means, but it is deeply entertaining. And that's kind of not what I was expecting. I was expecting like a very like buttoned up costume drama about like the importance of democracy and Catholicism and everything else. And Stanley Tucci's character in this is like he is one of the cardinals, Aldo Bellini, who a lot of people are gathering around because they want him to be the next pope. He was very close friends with the previous pope, and he has a lot of reluctance because he has a lot of questions, not about his faith, but about the church in general. Like he doesn't really like a lot of the way that the church is going. Meanwhile, there is, I believe it is Carlos Diaz, who plays Vincent Benitez. I can't remember who it was.
Gorlami.
I think that it's this guy. Oh yeah, Tedesco. That's who it is. Sergio Castellito, who plays Cardinal Tedesco, who is very much, he's a make make Catholicism great again guy, who he is just very much like, we should go back to like women not being allowed to lead the church. And like his whole thing is just like, it's been nearly 100 years since there's been an Italian Pope. Don't you think that like we need to like set everything right again, and we need to put like Italians back where they belong as like the seat of the Pope? So there's a lot of this kind of like progressive versus traditional ideas that are happening within the church, politicking of people switching their allegiances on who they want depending on what the power dynamics are. And one of the big standouts, I knew that it was this guy did something, but Carlos Diaz, he's a Mexican actor who, this is his first role in anything ever. He plays a unknown cardinal who shows up from, I believe that he's Mexican, but he is stationed at a church in Tehran, I want to say, like in a very highly Muslim population. He is coming there, and how he kind of incorporates into the story, I don't want to spoil anything, but it is incredible and leads to like a third act shocking moment that I could never predict in all of my life, but it is such a cool twist that happens in this movie that had me like laughing in my seat in joy. Like it really knows how to tie the bow in a way that I was kind of expecting it to go a very traditional route, and it skirts a lot of those ideas. So I definitely recommend it. I think that this is going to be like, it's a nominee for like the prestige dad movie of the years. Dads are gonna love this shit. Dads are gonna lap this shit up for
the Michael Mann achievement in dad cinema.
There's a lot of those this year. There's quite a few dads in cinema see the film Trapped for that are going to be eligible for that award, but just Trapped. Excuse me, Trapped is the artist of the song Headstrong. No, Conclave is a good movie. I definitely highly recommend it.
Running number 3 on Gold Derby right now for Best Picture, behind Anora and The Brutalist.
You know what it kind of reminds me of? It does feel a little bit like this year's Banshees of Inisherin, where I don't think it's going to win. But I do think that there is going to be a lot of people, especially like a lot of like Letterboxd heads, and maybe it might even be a thing where I think like The Apprentice really suffered because of a Donald Trump reelection. I could see a movie like Conclave, a little bit of the cynicism kind of poking that pokes out of that movie. People clamoring to this. I don't think it's going to win, but I could see Ralph Fiennes maybe sneaking in there.
I was about to say he's number 2 behind Adrian Brody.
Yeah.
On Gold Derby right now. Gold Derby, the current odds on Gold Derby have Conclave getting about 6 nominations, possibly 8, because there's a couple that's like right on the edge. Brutalist has 10 predicted nominations on Gold Derby. So there's a good chance that these are the 2 most nominated films of this year's Oscars. I'm curious about the score, because right now The Brutalist is listed number 1 for score, and Conclave is right behind it.
It is a very good score. Like, it is something that you're listening to. It does kind of, there's some propulsiveness to it that it keeps it going. It fits very, very well into the vibe. Like the editing, I will say, I'm not sure where it is on the editing chart for film editing right now, but I think
number 4. It's in the 5.
It's very well edited. Like, it is a movie that's in the wrong hands. It could drag. It could try to be sharp, but maybe like belabor itself a little bit too much. And I will say there's a good snappiness to it, and the score works in that's favor. You know what you really hate to see is challengers just holding on by a thread at 5th right now. Really hate to see that. Yeah. Feels like that's not happening. It feels like Challengers is going home empty-handed at this point.
Okay, let's bounce back over to me, because you're over there with your popes and your Italy and your Vatican, and I'm over here with the American justice system, the beautiful tapestry that Mr. Clint Eastwood has drawn for us with his new film Juror number 2. you drafted this movie in our fantasy film draft. And I don't know if you ever expected it to pay off in any way. And
I didn't know if this movie would be released, to be honest. I think I had $1 left and I said, I'm betting it all on Clint.
I don't know if it will be released, honestly. Like that's that's still
we might be like 2 of like 50 people that will actually be able to watch this movie.
It is gonna drop on Max. It is a Max original dropping right before Christmas. But this is a film by Mr. Clint Eastwood, acclaimed actor, director, legend of cinema, who is now 94 years old, giving us what might be his final movie. And watching this movie the other night, all I could think about was, how is this movie so good? I do not understand how a 94-year-old made this movie. It doesn't make any sense that he was capable of making this. It does suffer from, what we know as the Clint style of filmmaking, which is like 1 or 2 takes and that's it.
You can kind of feel it sometimes where it's like, could have gotten another one maybe. Could have the line delivery a little sloppy there.
But it's an incredibly watchable movie. The main premise, it's such a good idea for a movie. The main premise is Nicholas Hoult plays a guy who gets called for jury duty, and as he's discovering the nature of the case that he's on the jury for, he thinks he may have committed the crime. And man, how has that not already been a movie? Like, that's such an
incredible premise. It's unreal long line.
It's so good. And it's very efficient. By minute 15, you're already in the courtroom hearing opening statements. By minute 40, you're already hearing closing statements and getting into jury deliberation. And the movie's under 2 hours long. So you're in and you're out in like less than 2 hours, and your time is valued. Your time is not wasted at all. It's not drawn out. And the other thing I kept thinking about was, we used to get movies like this all the time. In our Tom v. Tom series, we covered like 3 or 4 of these, legal courtroom movies.
The Firm and
A Few Good Men. Like it used to happen all the time. Philadelphia, and I can't remember the last time a movie like this came out with like our current crop of stars and actors. So Nick Hoult is the central star here. He plays the titular juror number 2. And we also get a bunch of other folks in here, like J.K. Simmons, who plays another juror. Toni Collette plays the prosecutor. Chris Messina plays the defense. Your boy, Kiefer Sutherland, makes an appearance.
Let's go. How is his alcoholism head these days?
Not great. But he does play.
You do hate to see that.
He is canonically an alcoholic in the film. And it does play a key role in the story. So
that almost feels a little mean. Like, I don't know.
Well, no, because it relates very closely to the Nicholas Hoult character. So I really enjoyed this movie a lot. I don't think it's gonna make my top 10, but I think it's an easy recommend. I think this is a movie that you can kind of recommend to almost anybody, and they'll get a lot out of it. It's very, very well made, very watchable. It doesn't do anything like egregious or offensive. The main thing on its mind is telling like a really thrilling kind of mystery driven story of like, is this guy really responsible for this crime? And if he is he gonna be found out? Like, is he gonna get away with it? It doesn't really do a lot of extraneous stuff outside of the core premise. It's really just, it's getting to the point, it's getting to the goods of what you want to see. I really loved it. And the ending, the final shot, like the final scene, I think there's a lot to think about. And I think people are going to be discussing, it's not like a twist ending or anything like that, but the choice that Clint makes right at the end of like where he chooses to end the movie, it's like, oh, interesting. wouldn't think you'd do that, Clint.
So are you ready to drop your conspiracy theory that you dropped in our chat after watching this movie
That
and
maybe he didn't make
singing
this?
the praise of it? Yeah, that this was like ghost directed by him, and
I don't know, man.
There was a ghost director in play that was doing a lot of the work.
It's just really good. And I've talked to like 85-year-olds and they can barely talk.
So that's the thing. I almost wonder, did he, I mean, I'm assuming that he didn't like write this movie. So like, or like have any
No,
kind of
it's credited with a guy named Jonathan Abrams who has no other credits.
Oh, not of that Abrams ilk. Yeah, no, I guess if it's a lot in the source material, but I mean, good on him. He is a good director. It's just a thing of like, what has the source material been the last 10, 15 years? So let's see, like he made Cry Macho, gone from the consciousness. Richard Jewell is a bomb in Centennial Park. You have 30 minutes.
You have 30 minutes.
You have 30 minutes. The Mule was another like meme before it came out. And then I think that like 12 people saw it. 15, 17 to Paris. Don't ask me what that is. Sully. So Sully is probably like his last like big hit that people have loved. And even that he made when he was in his mid to late 80s. So it's just, I mean, good on him that he's 94 and still out here doing this. I'm more so just, I'm upset with Warner Brothers and with Zaslav for just burying this thing. Clint Eastwood is an icon of Warner Brothers. Like he has made some of the best movies that they have put out ever, like whether acting or directing. Like whenever you think about something like Unforgiven, everything that he was doing in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, $1 Million Baby.
A legend.
And the fact that he's 94, he made a movie. It's good. Like even before it came out, everybody was like, this is a good movie. This is very successful. And didn't even give it like a limited release. Like their theatrical window for this movie was an absolute joke. They released it in like 4 theaters for like one night.
Even the lead up to it, we didn't even know if this movie was even real. Like there was barely like a run up of marketing or anything. It was just like, oh yeah, Clint's making another movie. We know he's filmed it, and then suddenly it's like, boom, here it is.
Honestly, it's such a shitty like release thing that I almost wonder if Warner Discovery tried to do the same thing that they did with the Looney Tunes movie and with Batgirl and tried to just like write this movie off. And somebody somewhere said, that's Clint Eastwood's last movie. You can't fucking do that. So he's like, fine, I'll release it in theaters. What, you want 4? There you go. You get 4 theaters. Like it almost feels like a spite, like a pity.
Yeah, backhanded.
That's happening. It's something. It's so bizarre. I don't really understand it at all. It's one of the weirder releases of the year. But I'm excited to see it because I have heard it looks great. It's a great premise.
I highly recommend it. There's some choices that are baffling, that are just like, why did you do this? This doesn't make any sense, but it doesn't break the movie. It's just like certain things have to happen to like get us to the end that I thought could have been cleaned up a little bit. Nicholas Hoult is phenomenal in this role. Like, holy crap, he's so good. I cannot wait to see his Lex Luthor next year in Superman, because it's just like, man, this guy's super talented. And I think the movie has a lot of ideas on its mind about the justice system in this country and what justice even is, and in what forms does it take shape, and is the truth always in line with justice? It clearly has some complex ideas that it's trying to, kind of fit together in interesting ways. It's not super clear cut, and it doesn't leave you with a lot of answers necessarily. It sort of just wants you to contemplate the questions and consider, what do we do when we have a complicated situation in front of us that may mean justice for one person, and it may not necessarily be the right thing to do. So That's Juror number 2. It's the new Clint Eastwood film. It's going to be on Max December 20th. Couple last items here before we close out. Let's go back to you with the next item on the wheel. Blitz.
Yes, Blitz is the new Steve McQueen movie that I think has been like hotly anticipated for what feels like forever. When was this movie announced? Like 4 years ago. It's like Steve McQueen's making a movie. It's World War II. It's starring Saoirse Ronan. I feel like this has been known about for forever. Had a ton of hype around it, and it's kind of been one of those things where it's been hyped up for so long that by the time the release came out, it felt pretty muted. And I think one thing that's helping it is that this movie is not great, which is a bummer. You do hate to see that. I will say Saoirse Ronan is back to like being excellent in things again, which I don't think that she was ever bad, but she has had like a couple of real stinker choices in the last few years post Little Women. And this is definitely not that. But I just really wanted a lot more from this movie, especially knowing what Steve McQueen is capable of with something like 12 Years a Slave, the Small Axe series, even something like Widows, which isn't like incredible, but it's just like a blast of a movie. Like, remember Widows? It's a fun time. Blitz just kind of lacks the juice that it needs. And it's not inherently bad in any way. It looks great. It has an interesting enough story, but a lot of it feels like a first draft to me, which
tough.
Is interesting because this movie has been like in the oven cooking for so long that it shouldn't feel underbaked. And yet this movie feels really underbaked. It jostles around between it. A little bit of background. It is based on during World War II, the frequent Blitzkrieg bombings that the Germans would do to London and to parts of England right during the peak of World War II. During that time, the English government essentially built like a camp for children so that parents could send their children off to safety away from the city while their parents continued to like work and make like munitions and everything else that was needed to like help contribute to the war, but the children could be safe. The children didn't have to worry about constantly hiding out and getting into bunkers because the alarms are going off that bombs are coming down. So it is starring Saoirse Ronan and also Elliot Heffernan, who is a young child. This is his first performance in anything. He is very good in this role. It's pretty much pretty even split between the two of them and who you're spending the most time with. But it just kind of jumps around a little bit too much, not just from character to character between the two of them, but every time that you start to be around some supporting characters that you really like, and you're like, oh, it's going to be this kind of movie. Something switches and now we're like moving on to something else. And it's something where it feels very indecisive on what movie it's trying to tell. And it's trying to say so much about not just the English experience and this caution against Nazi Germany, but also about the Black experience, really within this time, about what it was like being a woman. There's a whole thing about like communism and how like this whole like that becomes a point of safety for here is just like having like the red idea of like us coming together, and these socialist ideas are actually the thing that's going to get through this so much that you just never really feel settled in any given one movie. I like what it's one of the big things, like what especially with the child George is his name, who we spend most of the movie is. He's the biggest victim of this, where he goes off to this, he gets sent off to this camp, and he decides on the way there, he's running away. He's trying to get back to London. So the whole time it is a journey of him trying to get back to his mother, Saoirse Ronan. We get elements of like Stand By Me because he's with some other kids, and that's like a thing that we have going on here. And then he encounters some other cast of characters along the way. At one point, there's like a like an Oliver Twist situation where he's getting like recruited to be like a little thief boy and like looting where the bombs are dropping for dead people's jewelry. It's just a mess. That's what I mean. It really is just a thing where it feels like we didn't have anybody like punching up this script first. And I don't know if it's an Apple thing because this is an Apple Plus show and Apple, Netflix.
Well, it's
I feel
a
like
movie, not a show.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
movie,
kind of what
me.
I was going to ask. Is do you think that him making Small Axe the show impacted his approach? Because you're kind of describing what could have been a show. Like,
yes, yeah,
and
honestly,
Small Axe was
could have
great.
been a lot more effective. I had that thought too when I was watching it. Of like, there's a lot of meat within this, but it just doesn't congeal well because it feels like we aren't giving enough time to any one story. So I think you're right that I do think that this really could have benefit from a show. But I also think that's one of those things that he wanted to make a movie. And I say this about Netflix a lot. I say this about Apple, about anything that is a streamer release thing, is that they overpay to get these incredible filmmakers and just give them carte blanche to do whatever they want. And guess what? Sometimes studio notes are important. Sometimes editing is important. You aren't going to get on the first draft every time. Nobody does. Let's like take that thing back. Let's take some notes and let's pull out the good pieces of this and make it just one thing. Or you're working with Apple. Let's pivot and blow this thing out into like a 6-episode mini series. Make this another Small Axe. And I think that it also would have been more effective that way. But instead, what we got is just something that is pretty middling, pretty forgettable. And I'd say like if we're playing contender pretender game for this, like I think this is out. I think it's fully done. Even Sorsha at this point has a better chance of being nominated for The Outrun, her other film, than she does for this. Which is, it's a bummer. I was really, really excited for this movie. I was really anticipating. I think that somebody, I can't remember who, whenever we did our fantasy film draft, bet a lot of money to get this thing.
The most expensive acquisition of this year.
It was number one. I think so, Blitz?
Yeah.
Jeez, yeah. And it just doesn't work. It just misses.
That's tough. I mean, I'm still a fan of McQueen. I'm still in the bag for him.
Like I said, this is not fully an indictment on him. I think that sometimes you just have some swings and misses. There is a lot of good stuff in here. It's just one of those things I just want it to be better. And it just isn't. It doesn't reach its potential.
All right, that's Blitz. I think is it already streaming on Apple, or it will be within the next few weeks before the end of the year?
I'm going to be honest. I don't know if it's streaming yet, but I am sure it's going to be on there sooner rather than later because I don't think that's doing a lot box office wise.
All right, we got two things to talk about before we end the episode. I should mention real quick, I forgot to say that the double feature I did with Piece by Piece was Juror number 2. I went from finishing Juror number 2, going directly into Piece by Piece, which was great, but I think it would have been even better if I instead would have paired either one or the other or both with the next movie I'm going to talk about, Joker 2, Folie, Deux. Juror number 2, Joker number 2. Maybe that would have been a good double feature.
Mm-hmm. Is Juror number 2 also a surprise musical?
I wish. Oh my God. Could you imagine Toni Collette, J.K. Simmons just in the courtroom?
I'd be all for it. That'd be great.
Like I mentioned at the beginning, we get these screeners. The moment I saw that Joker 2 had been added to my Warner Brothers for your consideration screener list, I thought, okay, it's time. It's time to partake in the dark, twisted masterpiece of Todd Phillips. I thought I wasn't going to see this movie, but they're pushing it for awards. It's for your consideration. Todd Phillips, Lady Gaga, Academy Award winner Joaquin Phoenix reprising his Academy Award winning role as Joker, as Arthur Fleck in the sequel, Joker 2, Folie, Deux. Man, this movie is so boring. It is such a bummer of a watch. I said that Venom, Let There Be Carnage might be the worst movie of the year. This is the most confounding and frustrating and just, again, flat out boring movie I've seen this year. there is very, very little to grab onto. And I was hoping, like, part of me was thinking, I wasn't 100% sure that I was ever going to see this movie, but I was thinking, if I'm going to see it, maybe there's a chance I'll like it. Maybe I'll have the contrarian take. I have talked to some people.
You thought, because this movie isn't for the fans. And since you're not a fan, you thought like, maybe it's for me. I'm not a fan.
Right. Todd Phillips said, fuck the fans. If you're a fan, you're a fucking loser. And I thought, great, I'm in the bag for that. Let's see what you got, Todd. Didn't work. Unfortunately, I'm not here to say that Joker 2 is misunderstood. I'm not here to say that people had no idea what the hell they were talking about when they rejected this movie, when it flopped. There's just not a lot here. It is incredibly aimless. It just lacks any type of fun, which is definitely the point. That's definitely what Todd is trying to do. He's not trying to entertain you. He's trying to make a point. He's trying to say that if you like the Joker, you're kind of a fucking loser. You're kind of an idiot who deserves to die. Okay? And what you're left with is something that is just neither here or there, because the movie doesn't go far enough to be a middle finger fuck you movie. Like, it should have pushed harder. It should have made even more of a statement. And it just doesn't. It's just, the whole thing is this reiteration of the first one. It's basically just looking back at the first movie. Arthur Fleck is on trial for the murders he committed in the first movie. And along for the ride is Lady Gaga as Harley Quinn. And her performance as Harley Quinn is so weird because it's like there's nothing about the character that we know as Harley Quinn in this version. And there's nothing that we know of Lady Gaga in this character. At least I would hope for there to be, if you're doing a Joker musical, I would like for there to be some Lady Gaga, mind-blowing musical sequences. And every time this movie decides to grind to a halt and give us a musical number, it's bad. That's just mind-blowing to me. That's like the one thing you're offering that's different, that's new, that's interesting, is just flat out like boring and uneventful. I guess that they put some work into the staging. Like, they built some nice sets, but man, like, the performances are just not there. The singing is just not there. There's like one maybe 30-second bit where you get a classic Gaga belt of the voice where you get her like actually doing her thing, and then it goes away. And you're left with like these 2 hours of, you're in the courthouse with the trial of the Joker, and then you go into a dream sequence of a musical. And to be honest, this movie just put me to sleep. I'm just shocked. I knew everyone said it was bad, but actually sitting there and trying to watch it, it still surprised me like how bad it was. It does get a little bit interesting at the end. The movie kind of like jolts up with 15-20 minutes left in its runtime, and you kind of think like, oh my God, why wasn't this the whole movie? Where Todd Phillips actually starts doing stuff behind the camera, but it's a little too late at that point. You've already sat through 2 hours of basically nothing. Courtroom, Arkham, musical.
Listen, you said you wanted more courtroom dramas, and you got them in the form of the Joker. I don't think I'm ever going to see this movie. I hate the first Joker. I think Todd Phillips is a hack, and I'm so happy. Like, I'm like a pig in shit right now, just seeing the world turn against Todd Phillips and be like, wait, was he ever really that talented of a director? Just the idea, and I'll be the first to admit that like I can be pretentious. The idea of just like, I want to make a movie that's not to entertain. Mm-hmm. I want to try and disgust everyone from my film. And I'm going to take all of Warner Brothers money while I do it. Well, like there's part of me that admires it. I'm also just like, okay, but we're in an entertainment industry. And at the end of the day, like that's kind of what your job is to at least make something that is, if not entertaining, then at the very least profound.
Yeah. Artistic or thought-provoking or something.
Yeah, it sounds like there's none of that in here. So really, you just hate to see that.
I guess, Joaquin, congratulations on your paycheck. Maybe do Beau is Afraid too. Beau is again.
Yeah, there you go. Take
Beau is Afraid again
for you. Beau is still afraid. Beau's still so fucking scared. He still hasn't nutted. This is a weird thing because I wanted to bring this up earlier. We were talking about Wicked, but now's a good time too. About 2024 is like a very bizarre year for musicals that are happening. Like obviously Wicked's the big thing, whatever, but there's Joker, Folie, Deux. There's the like other like probably running in like 4th or 5th right now in Best Picture race, Emilia Perez, which is a musical that I neither of us have seen yet.
We'll get to it.
I almost booted up the other day. I was just like, I don't think I'm ready to fully dive in. I'm like half awake. And then there's also The End.
Tilda Swinton.
So weird
Shannon.
Year for like artsy or like faux artsy musicals that we're getting here. I'm not really sure what's in the water that all of these filmmakers are just like getting inspired by 60s, 50s, and 60s musicals. I'm going to be like, I want to create my version of that right now in the 2020s. If that's indicative of something to come, or if this is just like a weird one-off year that we're getting here.
Well, unfortunately, the musical aspect of Joker 2 is
any original songs we can bet on for best original song.
No original songs. No original anything. Just a bummer. And a confounding just waste of talent. Because clearly, Joaquin Phoenix is a very talented actor. Lady Gaga is a very talented performer, and just to see them like not be utilized to the extent that they should be is just, a bummer. So that's Joker 2, Folie Deux. Last thing before we wrap is A Real Pain, a movie we both saw, a movie that will probably come up again as we reach the end of the year. Listomania, best ofs, and then the awards race. Because I think you're a huge fan of this movie.
I absolutely love this movie. This is one of my favorites of the year. We saw this together a couple weeks ago now, and honestly, this movie has sat with me in this like really, really beautiful way, in a way that I was deeply moved in the theaters whenever we saw it together, and it has only continue to grow in my estimation for what Jesse Eisenberg is trying to say.
It's directed, written, starring, and directed by Jesse Eisenberg.
Yeah.
Also with Kieran Culkin.
Yeah, co-starring Kieran Culkin, who's the favorite right now to win Best Supporting Actor.
He's the lead of the movie, but that's a lead.
Fine. It's a fake Best Supporting Actor, but in the Best Supporting Actor, like in that category, it's my favorite supporting actor that anybody has given this year. I think that he is unreal good in this portrait of two brothers who, following the death of their two cousins, who following the death of their grandmother, are wanting to go on this journey to discover a little bit about their family history, about their past, specifically looking through Poland, to go in, look at some concentration camps, look at places where she grew up, where she lived her life, and kind of re-experience what the Jewish people went through and what her grandmother specifically went through. So obviously, like, that has a lot of heft to the story on its own. But really where the movie is at its most interesting is whenever it is focused on these two cousins, who in a lot of ways are really closer than most brothers are, most siblings are. They have this deep relationship, this deep history with each other, where you can tell that they meant so much with each other. They spent so much time with each other, growing up with each other.
Well, you can tell they used to be close.
And that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
They both are carrying this history with them, but also you aren't seeing them when they're like out at night, spending all days and everything together. Like, it's very clear that these are two characters that, despite their relationship and growing up together have gone in very different life paths. And one you would say is doing the traditionally successful thing of having a wife and having a child and a successful job. And the other one is kind of lost. He's a lost spirit. He's just wandering around aimlessly, trying to find somewhere that he belongs, somewhere that he feels safe. I am speaking of the Kieran Culkin character, but what makes his character so electric and not just like a sad oaf of a character is that he has this kinetic energy, this ability to connect with anybody and anytime and say whatever he wants, and people just love him. Everybody just wants to flock to him and love him, and yet he can't really find a way, and he can't really find a way to love himself and find a place of true belonging. And that's where this movie is really made.
So you were much higher on this movie than I was when we left the theater. My biggest takeaway fresh out of the theater was that I wanted more. I thought the movie was so good that I felt like I could have watched 10, 15, 20 minutes more, and I felt like I was kind of not robbed, but like deprived a little bit of like the fullest potential. Like there was more juice in the fruit to squeeze out of there. And I felt like Jesse did a great job, but he didn't do as good as I thought he could have, because the movie was so good, and I felt like there's more meat left on the bone. But after really sitting with it and thinking about it, it's a movie that really, it settles well in the mind after a while. And whatever reservations I had about it, I may have on a rewatch again, but I'm not really clinging on to them too much. I'm really thinking about all the things the movie did well, particularly how the movie chooses to depict the nature of the Kieran Culkin character to the people around him, and his unpredictability, his volatility, and just the idea of like someone being so, I guess, kind of abrasive and intense in this setting. Your wife Gaia was sitting in between us in the screening, and I could feel her like squirming in her seat every time this Kieran guy is doing anything, because we all know at least a guy like this who is like, he pushes the social situation a little bit further than you're supposed to. He says things or does things or behaves in ways that like aren't necessarily offensive, but are just outside some of the established norms of any number of social scenarios. And that creates an incredibly uncomfortable movie watching experience to have to sit with that. And the way it's deployed in the story, I think it's so well done, because I think a lesser director would simplify it and build an entire story around how this guy sucks, or like how everyone is like sick of him, or how, I can't stand him. And you think the movie is going to go there. Every single time it happens, every scene where that tension builds up, you're just ready for it to go there, because I feel like we've seen a bunch of movies that do that. I feel like there's countless examples of characters that are like that. A Todd Phillips staple, Zach Galifianakis in the Hangover films.
There you go.
That's the easy route. That's not what this movie is doing. It's actually at every opportunity pulling back and showing you like, actually, this guy's really smart, and everything he's saying has a really good point. And maybe he's saying it in a way that maybe he shouldn't, because it's like a little bit too much, but he's coming from a very good place, and he has a heart. Like, that's kind of the whole point of the movie, is that this guy, he's trying to find himself, and in finding himself, you're realizing not just how wounded he is, but how beautiful and emotional he is on the inside. And that's what the Jesse Eisenberg character is gravitating towards, is that beautiful, lovable center. And I think that in many ways, this movie is very, or I should say the Kieran performance is very different from the Succession performance from, oh my God, Roman Roy. There's a lot of overlap. Obviously, a lot of the energy is similar. But after watching the movie, I feel like I saw a different guy. You know, I didn't see Roman Roy again. So I would be very happy with a nomination. I would be very happy with a win. I think he'd be very well deserved. I hope that it's not, people aren't voting for Succession again. No, I hope that's not what this is.
I don't think that is the case, because I really think, like, honestly, this is right there with a movie like Anora, a couple other ones that are on my list here of like my favorite screenplays of the year. Like, I think that the way that this movie depicts characters, it's doing exactly what you're talking about, where everything is more complicated than what it is in a traditional movie, because that's life. The real people that you are around, they will do like unsavory things or put in uncomfortable situations, but maybe they do have a magnetism to them. Maybe you do just have history with them and you still love them. Also, there might be some people who are very turned away from it. Like, not everybody is just all in on Benji's deal. Like, there's on this tour group together with a bunch of other people, and a lot of people are gravitating towards him. And there's some people, like there's the old man who's just like, nope, I'm good on that. I don't want anything to do with that.
Or the guide, the friction with the tour guide. It's done.
It's really well executed. And I think that's one thing with this movie is that, and I definitely do understand the criticism. I feel it a little bit where it's like, I wanted more of this movie, but where I have had a lot of enjoyment since this movie has come out is talking about a lot of the interpretation, because so much of this is very carefully it's very carefully and very deliberate in the way that it doles out information to you. We are in the Jesse Eisenberg character, who he is much more of a reserved guy. So because of that, you have more of a restricted POV in what exactly is going on. Does Kieran Culkin have like some kind of like romantic tension flair with Jennifer Grey's Marcia character? Or is that like this like this maternal character for him? Or are they bonding over two people who have both lost somebody? Because that's another aspect. Like, there's so much depth and so many layers to everything that's happening and to all these characters that are in this story. That's, I think, make it deeply profound. And I also just got to give kudos to Jesse Eisenberg as a filmmaker, because I didn't think that he had it in him whenever it comes to like directing chops. I've never seen When He Finished Saving the World. Came out a couple years ago.
It didn't get the best reviews. I think it premiered at Sundance, which I think this film also did.
Yeah, but I know it's the Finn Wolfhard one. Yeah, Finn Wolfhard, Julianne Moore one. Never saw that one, but he definitely has the eye, man. There is particularly a couple of sequences in the movie where they go to I can't remember the name of the town, but they go to what was once a thriving, affluent Polish town center that was basically like the Polish Broadway, where they say, like, don't think about the horrors that you're going to see at the concentration camp, because there's a concentration camp that is like
next door,
a mile, 2 miles from city center. But like, think about like what is there before, and the way the camera will hold on these shots, and just think of like, you'll hear the voice of the tour guide be like, picture a synagogue, picture a thriving bookstore on a Saturday morning. A market. Like, and it's, you aren't necessarily seeing things, but the camera holds for just long enough, and the way that the camera is positioned, that it leaves enough time for you as the audience to visualize that.
Yeah.
Another thing is whenever they actually do go to the concentration camp, seeing the shots, that is the scene of the movie is heavy, man. It is a lot. And it's one of those things that I think in the wrong hands, it can feel a little bit belaborious. Like, it can feel like a little bit overbearing, especially because this movie is pretty light at a lot of aspects. So it's like, oh, now we're making a big turn here, but it feels in conversation with the rest of the movie, because at the end of the movie, this is a movie that is about like looking backwards, whether it is in a wider point of view about like your own family history and trying to discover who you are by looking at your family history, or looking at who you are as a person today by looking at who you used to be.
But it's also, I think it is also very much about the Jewish experience. I think a way that is what a real pain is. And the Kieran character kind of verbalizes that. I think there are really great stretches of dialogue where you can tell it's just Jesse Eisenberg, like through this Benji character, channeling a lot of frustrations and a lot of emotions about his Jewish identity. And there's a scene in the train where a lot of that comes out, and he says the title of the movie without really saying it, or I guess like the main theme behind the title, where it's just about like what is this idea of wearing your pain, of carrying your pain, because that's something that is very inherent to the Jewish experience, is very consciously like carrying that pain. And when they're on this trip, he feels very conflicted about like being able to do that and enjoy a vacation, right? And like a holiday, and the things that come with, you know, a nice trip on a train through Europe. And there's more layers even on top of that get introduced. So I want people to experience like the full breadth of what this movie has to offer. But there's a lot of details like that really sung with me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And just so many different things that can be interpreted different ways. Like, I mean, one of the other calls to the title, A Real Pain, is like this feeling of guilt of how do I have the right to be depressed when my grandparents had to like experience the biggest atrocities on earth? I can't, like, I don't deserve to say that I'm experiencing pain because of like what my ancestors had to go through. Yeah. And that's this whole other layer that's on here, is like this layer of just immense survivor's guilt.
Yeah.
It's incredible. I really, really love this movie.
Well, to shout out the concentration camp scene, I think that is one of the best scenes of any movie I've seen this year, because it's so efficient with the number of shots, the number of setups that we see, and how long Eisenberg chooses to stay on those shots. It's like you're not even aware of where you are or what you're looking at until you're moving on to the next thing. It all feels very quick, and there's a moment where that quickness suddenly stops, and you sit and you hold on this shot of every single character walking past the camera and looking directly into the lens. And that moment has stuck with me so much because of where we're at in that scene, in that moment, what they're looking at when they're looking into the camera, and specifically the casting of these characters, like the faces that we're looking at and the variation of each person, of each face as they're passing across the camera uncut. You know, this is a tough moment in the world right now, where we're being told that we have to be divided and that we have to fear each other and that we have to try to do horrible things to each other to survive. And a little choice like that rings different in a post-election day 2024 world, where it's a very simple shot. It's a very simple setup of just actors just walking across and just looking into the camera, but the entire thematic context around that moment and the weight that is being delivered by the performances, totally wordless, no dialogue. It has really stuck with me. It has really stuck with me because we're all just people, man. Like, why are we doing this to each other? Why do we feel the need to do these horrible things to each other when we're all just here? Like, we're the same. We're all just human.
Yeah.
No matter what shape or color we take, like we're all the same. And the movie doesn't try to make a point. It's a very subtle thing that it does. And there's a lot of little choices like that. That sequence really, really stuck with me. And then there's like a little 2-second beats that I won't spoil. They're very haunting, very, very haunting right after that. Yeah, I can't believe it. It's horrifying, honestly.
Yeah, it is. This movie has just some of the most haunting things that you will see. But I kind of go back to it like that. It's something whenever we were talking about Anora too, about like these movies with multitudes, is that this movie is also like absolutely fucking hilarious. Like it also is just, it's Kieran Culkin doing the Kieran Culkin thing. Like it is so funny. There's one moment earlier on that I always think about where he first sees Marsha just like walking by herself, and he's like walking along with Jesse Eisenberg's character, and he's just like, "Oh, what's wrong with that woman? She looks hurt. I'm gonna go help her." And he like runs up to her. He's like, "Hey, why are you walking alone like a fucking loser?" Just to like a stranger saying that, and just like these little moments throughout that are deeply
just
funny.
breaking the ice.
Well, also, again, just coming from this person that everything about this movie just has like this layer of melancholy on it. Like really, really beautiful layer of melancholy that is really like summed up best in the end. The final sequence, which again, we'll have a spoiler discussion at another time, I'm sure. But like the way that this movie ends, I think is pretty gutting. Like it's just everything that is happening in that last scene. I've just been like racking my head around to wonder like what is next for these characters.
Right? Lovely film.
Beautiful.
I think it's
definitely a lock for my top 10. Absolute stone cold lock.
I think it's in mine right now. Yeah, right now it is, but we're about to hit another deluge of catch-up in the coming weeks. I have a list of 70 movies that I'm gonna try to watch. It's just, we can hope. It's
okay. We'll do what we can. We're doing our part, damn it. We'll do more 3-hour catch-up episodes to tell the people what to watch and what not to watch.
All right.
I think that Hot Frosty has a sequel. It's coming out next week, so don't forget to add that one.
Hotter and frostier.
Hotter, frostier.
We can wrap it up there. Thank you all so much for watching and listening. You can rate, review, and subscribe, and like and comment. Let us know your thoughts on everything we talked about, especially Hot Frosty. Mm-hmm. Let us know. Yeah. Is he hot?
Yeah.
Is he frosty?
I hope that the Hot Frosty clip gets the most views by like tenfold of everything that we talk about. That's all I can hope.
Check out our website, WeBoughTaMic.net, to get every episode in your email inbox. Donate $5 a month at patreon.com/WeBoughTaMic to support all the work that goes into making this podcast. Thank you to all the donors at Patreon. We appreciate your generosity, especially during the holiday season. It means a lot to wrap up another year with your support. Next week, we're back to our Tom Hanks, Tom Cruise series with Castaway, and a special little bonus episode. A little surprise we got cooking up for you. Stay tuned for that. And in the meantime, keep it jokery, keep it frosty, keep it popular.
There you go. Okay, that's a good one.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.